Right, folks. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. And if you have participated in any of our Power 5 conference preview live streams throughout the week, you understand that this is the one to make. This is the one. This is the one. This one just means more. Just means more. That's all there is to it. No explanation required. No explanation needed. This show just means more. Sorry if you just caught the Pac-12 or the Big Ten or the ACC or the Big 12. Probably all of those put together doesn't mean as much as this live stream tonight. So I'm glad you're here because you are just automatically more meaningful by being here, participating in the SEC preview live stream. Welcome to the Voice of College Football, everyone. I am not identified here at all. Yes, that's my fault. So we will take care of that. We will most certainly take care of that. Thanks for joining us here at the Voice of College Football on a Saturday night. Please check out the previous live streams. We had pretty lively banter, debate, discussion on the other four conferences, and I expect more of the same tonight from all of you. I will leave, of course, the link in the live chat. I should have left it. Yes, I should have left it in the description section of the video, but I failed to do that. I am rushing in the house just in time because it means more. I was here, made sure no law could stand in my way of getting here on time to talk SEC 2022. And because it means more, we are going live on more channels tonight throughout the network than at any point this week, not just here on the main channel, but you may be watching us on the Florida channel, the Alabama channel, the Texas A&M channel, possibly on South Carolina, LSU, whoever else I'm missing, Georgia, or the SEC channel. All right. Again, I will leave the link in the chat. We can talk about anything concerning college football. It does not have to be about the SEC, but hey, if you're going to play by the rules, if you're going to be in the spirit of the Saturday night here, 2 weeks away from college football, of course, we've got college football on the field in 2 weeks, and we got Vandy on the field in 2 weeks. So that's going to definitely mean more with Vandy on the field in Hawaii in what Clark Lee is telling us is going to be the best program in college football someday. So that's coming soon. 2 weeks from right now, the SEC will be on the field. So please join the show, and we will be taking your calls here at the Voice of College Football. So no big intro tonight as I did on the previous conference live streams. I guess just because it means more, we've got to give you more time. You know, I could tell you what is obvious to all. Alabama and Georgia are the two best teams in the conference. They are possibly still the two best teams in the nation. They are undoubtedly the two best teams in the nation last year with a gap underneath those two. There was a gap in college football after Alabama, Georgia last year. Will there again be this year? I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised. I know Ohio State is gaining a lot of attention, and I understand why. I understand why Ohio State's getting a lot of attention. People believe Clemson is going to be back among the elite. The Big 12 seems to be a tug of war between Baylor, Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma in regards to who is the best team. Is Texas back? Age-old year starter question each and every season, and USC under Lincoln Riley. But I am more certain about Alabama and Georgia than any two programs, any two teams in the country. As we stand right this second, I'm not saying they're the two best. They are two of the three best. I am pretty sure about that, and I am also definitely sure about saying they are collectively the surest thing in college football. All right, we do have a call coming in, so let's get right to it. Talking SEC preview 2022 here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
This is Aiden, the Michigan fan from New Albany, Ohio. And I told you that I was a Michigan fan, literally living 20 minutes away from the show.
Yes, Aiden, how are you?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm doing just fine.
I just got back from seeing the Top Gun Maverick movie, and I'm ready to make a bet with you.
Okay, I don't know what exactly that means, but
the bet is I will turn from a Michigan fan to a Buckeye fan because I'm sick of Jim Harbaugh's recruiting stuff if Ohio State wins the Natty.
Okay. Aiden, I can't say, certainly as an American, you have the right to do whatever you'd like. Fortunately, I believe we still have those rights. But as a college football fan, I have to question your loyalty. Why are you a Michigan fan? Let's start there.
Because one of my friends at school just turned me over, and it just happened like that.
So you were born in Ohio?
Yes, literally 20 minutes away from the show.
20 minutes away, and you had a friend so influential.
Yes.
At the age of what?
Damn. Let's see. I think it was either 12 or 13.
12 or 13. You're 12 or 13 years old.
By the way, my name is spelled with an E-N.
Oh, my apologies. We'll get that changed.
All right, thank you.
So, and that's why we ask you to put your name and so forth in the chat, which you may have. So I apologize if I screw that up.
I probably put it in the private chat. That's what. So that's my fault.
All right. So anyway, you're an Ohio boy at the age of 12 or 13 years old. So this was how long ago? Is this difficult math for you?
It was probably when I, yeah, because I knew it was in 6th grade. I'm a freshman now, so.
Okay, I don't need the exact number of days. Roughly, was this 10 years ago, 6 years ago, 3 years ago? When was this?
I'd probably say 3 years ago.
Okay, 3 years ago. 3 years ago, living 20 minutes from the Horseshoe, born and raised in Ohio.
Yes.
And Ohio State being a decidedly better program than Michigan, and a better team going back to way when you were a little tyke. And even before that, you had a friend who caused you to become a Michigan. I can't relate to that in any such way. I grew up an Ohio State fan in Ohio, and I had to live through Ohio State losing 10 out of 12 games to Michigan and not being as good. And it never crossed my mind. It never, my DNA is too strong, scarlet and gray. Like there was never a thought about being a fan of any other team. There was never a thought. I just can't relate to that. So I don't know what to tell you. But you're telling me that if Ohio State wins the national championship, that you're going to become an Ohio State fan.
Yes.
You understand that's like the worst time to become an Ohio State fan or a fan of any team. So they're going to go through the season, and then as soon as they win the national championship game, which may come in the last 3 seconds of the game, then you're going to celebrate a game that you were not a fan of that particular team.
Well, honestly, Michigan has kind of took a little bit of a toll on my mental health because
you're also making all these claims when Michigan is the Big Ten champion and they beat Ohio State last year.
I do know that.
Okay. I know that you know that, but So again, free choice. You have options. That's a good thing. And Do you have anything to say about the SEC?
So I was looking at Florida and Auburn schedule.
Okay.
Rate the chances that both of them don't make a bowl game.
Florida and Auburn?
Yeah.
Why do I have to group them together? What do they have to do with each other?
They don't have anything to do with each other. I was just looking at the schedules
Okay.
before I came on.
I am a little bit more confident than Florida is going to go to a bowl game because they certainly don't have the schedule that Auburn does. Auburn always plays one of the toughest schedules in the country and do again this year. Auburn's a really good football team. Now, by the standard of the SEC in that division, they could finish in last place, but it is the best division in football by a wide margin.
I actually think Auburn has a higher chance than Florida to make a bowl game because they're probably going to start out 4-1. And Florida might just start out 1-3, looking at both their schedules.
Okay.
So that's why I think Auburn has a better chance. Also, not in favor of Florida. I really don't know what I'm gonna get with Anthony Richardson, because I do think he has a ton of upside, but you got a first-year head coach with the guy that completed less than 50% of his passes and had more interceptions than touchdowns.
Okay. So Aiden, fortunately, you've come to the right place that you can't spew out any misinformation here. So Anthony Richardson did not complete less than 50% of his passes, nor did he throw more interceptions than touchdowns. Neither one of those statements is correct.
But I threw like 7 interceptions and 6 touchdowns.
Yeah. Give that another look. So, well, Aiden, we appreciate you being here. And, I'll even double check on my Anthony Richardson stats, but I believe it was 9 touchdowns and 5 picks. But did you have anything else for us?
And I think Alabama's defense, I think it could be 2021 Georgia-esque.
Okay.
Just because they have Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, who I think are the 2 best edge rushers in college football. They have Henry Toto at linebacker.
Yeah.
They brought in Eli Ricks at safety. They have a Kool-Aid McKinstry. So I think, Eli Ricks is a corner, my bad. They have Jordan Battle and Brian Branch at safeties. So I think they got a lockdown secondary too, along with having Will Anderson and Dallas Turner.
All right. Well, Aiden, we appreciate the call, and certainly have a good night. And we hope you work out your Ohio State Michigan conundrum this fall.
Probably am working on that.
Okay. Have a good one. Thanks.
You too, man.
All right. Next up here on our SEC preview, and I did state that you can call about anything. Absolutely. We've got Nick on the line. Nick, how you doing? Hello,
I'm
Nick.
doing good, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. What's going on?
Doing pretty.
Do we still have you? Hello, Nick. We may have lost Nick. Nick, are you here?
You still there, Mark?
Yes, I'm still here. I haven't gone anywhere.
Okay, sorry. The screen went black, or the call cut out for a second. Real quick, before we get into this, you did say we could call about other conferences and everything.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, what rivalry would you say in the SEC is comparable or bigger than the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry? Because I heard you say, didn't you go on a little spiel or rant or whatever in the beginning that the SEC all bow down to the SEC?
Yeah. Well, I was able to spit all that out while having tongue planted in cheek. So if you didn't recognize that.
No,
So
I'm just, I'm doing the same thing. So I caught you in the middle of that speech. Anyway, so
the answer would be Alabama Auburn. That would be the answer. So
so you think that's bigger?
no, you asked me if there was one. If
so
there
you think
could
it's
be an
comparable?
argument, if there could be an argument made for one rivalry in the SEC that's bigger than Ohio State, Michigan, that would be the one that would be the best one to put up against it.
Okay, so do you think it's comparable, or do you think there's a legitimate argument that it's bigger? Because those are two different things.
Well, I will steal a line from our buddy Beano Cook from a long, long time ago, and I think it still holds true. He says, he one time said, and I don't know when he would have said this, maybe sometime during the 90s, that the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry is a better rivalry. Alabama-Auburn is a more bitter rivalry.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah.
You actually agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
How much time have you spent in the South?
How much time have I spent in the South?
Yeah.
A lot. I have family in North Carolina, Louisiana, been down to Georgia, kind of list on. I will say I haven't really talked to a lot of college football enthusiasts down there. In fact, the time I've spent down there, I've rarely come across anybody wearing a Georgia or Alabama shirt.
Okay. Yeah, so I would just say, based on my experience, that it's just different. It's different because it's in state, for one thing. So those people,
Georgia Bulldogs.
Anyway,
I was trying to do.
We're talking about Alabama and Auburn. So
that's my best Southern accent. That's my best Southern accent.
They say that at the Alabama Auburn game very often, but in state, it's an in-state deal. Like, you have more confrontations between people every day in the same school, at the same workplace, that are Alabama fans versus Auburn fans. I was driving one time from Ohio, where I was visiting, back home, my home at the time in Mississippi, and I do have a slice of each. I grew up in Ohio, lived in Ohio for years and years and years, until I was about 25, 6, whatever I was at the time. And I lived in Mississippi, and I just didn't live there. I covered the SEC. So I lived it every day. I was at the campus every day, ballparks, news conferences, locker rooms, the whole deal, for 7 years. And it hit me when I was driving from Ohio to Mississippi in the middle of the summer. This is like in June. And as soon as I got within range of any radio station in the South, the deep South, I came across, in the middle of June, a entire sports radio show, 3 hours. This entire show was nothing but Alabama-Auburn debate.
What year was this?
Does this go on in Ohio or Michigan in the middle of June? I don't know entirely. Yeah, they're different deals. And right now,
what year was that?
That was around 2000, something in that range.
And what year was that quote you read off? When did he state that?
Oh, I don't know. Probably in the 90s.
Okay, back then it would have been more relevant, but I would actually argue today, if you were to look at the rivalries, it's probably more the inverse, isn't it? Because you would say Auburn's been much more competitive, even though they win roughly 1 out of 4, 1 out of 3. That would be the better rivalry because the underdog has a better chance of winning. When you look at Ohio State, Michigan, and the dominance that has taken place from the Buckeye standpoint, but you still have, and you can look up on YouTube the fights that take place on the field. I would actually argue more in the modern college football era. That's probably the more bitter rivalry, not the better one. Because
yeah, it depends on what you're talking about when you're talking about better. If you're talking about better, meaning that the teams are better, the players are better, or you mean that the games are better. Those are two different things. You can have NFL players all over the place and have an lopsided rivalry. You can have better games. You could have two lousy teams like Indiana and Purdue have a big rivalry at the end of the year that nobody outside the state pays attention to, but they could have great games every year. So you can measure this a number of ways.
Well, it brings in the most viewers.
Yes, Ohio State, Michigan consistently brings in the
so
most.
If you're talking about better from that standpoint, then yes. But bitter, I mean, when was the last time we saw Auburn, Alabama try to throw haymakers in the halftime tunnel?
Yeah, I don't know.
Although they probably have separate locker rooms, so that's probably not really relevant. But
yeah, and there's also a difference between the vitriol between the players and the fan bases.
I think there's more hatred in the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry than the Alabama-Auburn. I think the Alabama-Auburn rivalry, if there's hate, which there probably is hatred there, because there was some story about some dude poisoning a tree or something crazy down. Like, they got crazy stuff going down there. But I think from a competitive standpoint, I mean, everybody saw what happened when Michigan beat Ohio State for the first time this last year in that scene. We haven't seen something like that in, I mean, what, decades maybe? And that's so much bitterness built up from losing to your arch rival for years and years and years. And you see it, I mean, and even when Michigan was getting punked and everything for years and years and years, you'd still see fights on the field. I guess I can't remember the last time that I've seen a full-blown fight happen between Auburn and Alabama. I haven't seen where dudes are throwing haymakers. That happens every other year in the Michigan-Ohio State game.
I don't necessarily know that that's a good thing or that really underlines a rivalry.
No, but bitterness. But you said that quote said that Alabama-Auburn is the better, or Michigan-Ohio State is a better rivalry. Alabama-Auburn is the more bitter.
I think, first of all, I think that was more directed toward the fan bases because, again, there's just more crossover between fan bases between Alabama and Auburn. And
because it's in the same state?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Ohio borders Michigan.
Well, of course it does.
I don't know. That's an interesting quote. I guess I won't take too much more of your time here, but I guess I just don't agree with that. But quick point of order. Wanted to get your opinion on Georgia's defense. I, for one, I think Georgia is going to win their division. I think it's going to be an Alabama-Georgia rematch. I don't know if you agree with that or not. And on top of that, I know Georgia had a lot of players drafted. I don't think their defense is going to take as much of a step back as nationally perceived. So I guess I kind of wanted to get your opinion on that. I can let you go. Thanks for the call.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. Have a good night. So for Georgia to repeat the defensive performance from 2021 is virtually impossible. even if the same players came back, if they kept the entire defense, just statistically, it's almost impossible for them to give up 9 points per game again when facing Alabama twice, Michigan, if they would play in a college football playoff and play somebody the likes of a Michigan, Florida, South Carolina, Auburn, and the rest of the schedule. Okay, Kentucky. So let's get that out of the way. What Georgia did last year was historic. So somebody needs to come up with, and maybe they have, and I'm just not aware of it, something similar to what we see in Major League Baseball, where we just don't see the statistics, both individually and as a team, but we see it placed in the context of the era. Because to give up 9.5 points per game in 2021 is completely different than it was in 2011 or 2001 or 1991, 81, 71. It's just, it is mind numb. It's like giving up 3 or 4 points a game 25 years ago. And you can say what you will about the opponents that Georgia faced, the offenses they faced. I know that they faced Alabama twice. Sure, they didn't fare too well the first time. That was all about Alabama getting its playmakers into the Georgia secondary, where Georgia was. See, this was relatively speaking, when people talked about Georgia weakness last year, they looked at the secondary. It was still one of the best secondaries in the country. It was still a top 10 secondary, but compared to the front seven, that was the weak link. And Alabama's offensive line played out of its mind in the SEC championship game and protected Bryce Young, and he picked apart the Georgia secondary. And the game got away as well. But my goodness, every other game was just a demolition crew. I probably should have posted a video at some point after the season was concluded. I know that I thought about it a number of times, trying to assess historically what that defensive effort was like. It was otherworldly, phenomenal. Again, to look at the statistics is one thing. I like to do both. I watch the games. I'm not the who's the Moneyball guy? Billy Beane, the general manager of the Oakland A's, who of course was a tremendous high school and college baseball player, a recruit, a prospect, is the word I was looking for, as a number 1 draft choice. He was a phenom as a prospect, and then of course he didn't have much of a big league career, but he decided that after the nerds won him over, that why watch the baseball games when my eyes are deceiving me? The statistics can tell me everything. So there's actually a good point to that, but we're here to watch football. I want to watch football. But with Georgia, you could do either one. Just look at the stat sheet, look at the box score on Sunday, or watch the games. We haven't seen anything like that in a long time. Just not allowing offenses, good offenses. Arkansas, 37-0. Not allowing good offenses to operate. Not even allowing them to run the play. All right, now to the 22 defense. They're still going to be phenomenal. They're still going to be really good. Alabama's probably going to be better defensively. Clemson's probably going to be better defensively. I would not take any other defense in the country over Georgia other than those two. No, I wouldn't. The teams that play really strong, great defense don't have the same personnel. Wisconsin, Iowa come to mind. Ohio State's a wild card. We won't even bring them into the discussion, even though from a talent standpoint, they can match Georgia. But of course, they weren't the 50th best defense in the country most of the year last year. Oklahoma State and Baylor play really good defense, really good defensive teams with exceptional defensive coordinators. Now Jim Knowles turning into Derek Mason, and of course Baylor with Dave Aranda as the head coach and a defensive-minded guy. but they don't have the personnel. Georgia, yeah, they can't be as good. They won't be as good. They can't be as good. They will be the third best defense in the country in that range. 3 to 5 best defenses in the country, Georgia. So don't feel bad about Georgia. Yes, they lost a historic wealth of defensive talent to the NFL draft. 5 guys in the first round. 9 total players, I believe, in the entire NFL draft off the Georgia defense. Phenomenal. They played a cupcake in week 2, I believe. Well, shoot, not even a cupcake. UAB is a good group of 5 team. They demolished them. I think it went Clemson, UAB, Arkansas. So we had seen them play Clemson, and at the time didn't know that Clemson was going to struggle on offense as much as they did. But still, for as bad as Clemson was on offense, still, they've got dudes. And Georgia held them to 3 points. And Georgia moved the ball. It was one of those games where Clemson was hanging on to stay competitive. But they were. It was 3-3 forever. But they held Clemson to a field goal, zip, nothing. And then the UAB, they demolished them like 56-0. And then the game that sealed it for me was the Arkansas game. Watching 37-0 against an Arkansas team that turned around the next week, went to Oxford, played a bad Ole Miss defense from the year before, but a much improved 2021 Ole Miss defense. Ole Miss they were capable on defense. And KJ Jefferson, 51 points. But against Georgia, couldn't run their offense. All right. I will leave the link in the chat one more time here. The voice of college football. I am looking forward to this conversation about the SEC. And we've got a super chat coming in as well. And I am trying to catch up to it because I am remembering what everybody's complaint is, that I in no way should be going back in the comment section to grab your comments. Gee, Bama boy, appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for that. We are simulcasting on the Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M, South Carolina, LSU, Florida channels, as well as right here at the main channel. So if you love Georgia football, for example, please subscribe to our Georgia channel. We've got a number of Georgia contributors that we go to on a regular basis. And actually, if you just want to help us build the channel, period, and maybe you root for a Big Ten team or a Pac-12 team or somebody else, Florida and LSU are the priorities. Florida and LSU, we need to get them to 1,000 as soon as possible. They're both around 930. So please check out our Florida and LSU channels. I'll drop those links in the chat as well. And please subscribe, LSU and Florida. Oh, here we got an SEC fan. To Real MVP's here. How's it going tonight?
Mark. How are you doing this evening?
I am doing just fine. I'm doing great. Good to hear from you. What's up?
I'm glad you saved the best for last. I mean, undoubtedly the best conference. And I'll make a bold prediction. The SEC will finish as the best conference in this upcoming football season. Is there any way that the SEC doesn't finish first as the best conference?
I was going to ask that question at some point. I was going to say, okay, what is going to have to happen this season for anybody reasonable? Of course, we got our nutcases out there all over the place that think this or that, but I'm talking about well-educated college football fans like we have here at the Voice of College Football, for there to be a reasonable argument, not even like a open and closed case that the SEC has been surpassed, but where I would love to have a discussion about this next January. That is a meaningful, like, oh man, we're having a debate because look what happened. What is going to happen for somebody like myself and others to consider, and obviously the Big Ten would be the best candidate, that another conference has taken over from the SEC. You know what? That is a great topic for a video.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll give my theory about it, and you could tell how true it is or not. So it's no secret the SEC has basically given up on quote-unquote irrelevant bowl games, like with what LSU did and stuff like that. I mean, they had like half their team sit out. So if you couple that with the horrible start to the week 1, week 0 games, I think there could be a debate. So if LSU lost to Florida State, if Florida lost by 17 plus to Utah, if somehow Oregon kept it close or even beat Georgia, I think then maybe there is a case. But you would also need the mid-tier bowl games to go the Big Ten's way. Like Penn State needs to beat Arkansas. Iowa should have beat Kentucky. Purdue beat Tennessee, but I mean, that was very controversial game, so we don't know how much it takes off. I think you need all that to happen, and then there would be a debate. Because if you look at it from the talent, the draft picks, and all that stuff, that's going to go SEC.
Yeah.
So you would need the results on the field to be overwhelming.
Yeah. You're right. The recruiting rankings aren't going to change overnight. And they probably never will change, but they're certainly not going to change overnight this recruiting cycle. So, and then the NFL draft is going to fall in line like it has, 17 consecutive years for the SEC. So those two things aren't going to change, but those are, to me, they're good talking points. They're strong indicators, but the results on the field are what matters. That's why we're watching the games, and that's why they're playing. So you gave us 3 chunks of the season that I think are important. You've got your big non-conference regular season games. Then we've got our bowl games. And then we've got our high-end bowl games / more importantly, the playoffs. And so I believe that the SEC especially needs to be compromised in the regular season. And then when it really counts, playoffs, obviously, first and foremost, but also big New Year's 6 bowl games. And then the bowl games, we can look at and try to determine. And just so SEC supporters understand, you can't have it both ways. You can't brag about this little bowl victory here and that bowl victory there, and then discard the ones you lose because you say we didn't care. So you got to go one way or the other on that.
I agree with that.
Yeah, the other 2 components I think are more important.
Yeah, and the Big Ten probably in particular has the best shot, and they just need to be competitive. That's all they need to do. And I think what sealed it last year was the Georgia-Michigan game.
Yeah.
Because you could replay that 10 times, and I don't think there's a single scenario where Michigan wins. I mean, it was just complete domination.
There were 2 things, I think, to real MVP involved there, because if you look at the regular season performance of the Big Ten and the SEC against the other conferences, they're similar. Like the SEC did not completely outplay the Big Ten out of conference. And I'm not talking about just against each other because there was only one game. I'm talking about all the games against the other conferences. They were both not dominant, but had the best performance against the other conferences. But once we got to the playoff, 2 big things happened. You hit on one. Georgia killed Michigan. And number 2, Alabama was there too. So the SEC had 2 there, and they both win their playoff games. And then they play a really competitive, good championship game. And it almost helps the argument for the strength of the conference that they split the SEC championship game and the national championship game, because there's really not an argument to make for a Big Ten fan or any conference fan to say they've got anything close to Alabama, Georgia. Ohio State fans can say anything that they want, but it doesn't measure up. There's no backing there for the 21 season. Ohio State fans have to take the 2021 season off and arguing the program is the best in college football. Just there's nothing there. They lost when it counted twice. So I also think that helps.
I think it also helps a team like Arkansas, because Arkansas had to play both Alabama and Georgia. And you put any team against those two teams, they're probably going 0-2. So if you look beyond the final record, you're going to see that since, hey, the number 1 and 2 best teams clearly were playing, the records can kind of be skewed toward a negative direction. I think that also helps. Would you agree with that?
I don't know that I'm necessarily completely following that. So you're basically saying Arkansas went 9-4 and they had to play the 2 best teams in the country. So they went 9-2 against everybody else.
Right. If you put it, they were better than some 10-3 teams because of the schedule they played.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
Who doesn't think that Arkansas would probably win the ACC?
I don't know, but I think if you looked at the coaches poll, they're not even ranked inside the top 25.
Yeah, they barely were 23, I think. Yeah.
But that's crazy to me.
Well, that's the problem. And you and I have that discussion all the time. And we usually have it with group of 5 teams. How do you compare this 11-2 group of 5 team to this 8-5 SEC team? It's kind of hard. But there's also that comparison to make between an SEC team and the rest of the Power 5 when it comes to exactly that. There have been years where I've looked at, I'll just pluck Auburn, let's say, since they've been kind of sliding for the last 5 years, and said, you know what? Nobody can justify Auburn being ranked 25th in the country. Let's say they're at that particular point in the season, they're 5-3. They're 4-3. But do I think that they would beat a handful or more of those teams in the top 25? Are they better than some of those teams? Yes. I would bet on Auburn beating those. And I'm not, again, don't get confused, people. I'm not talking about this specific Auburn team. I'm just giving an example that there are teams in those 7 teams in the division right now. I don't think any of them are bad teams. We can go to every other division in college football and you can find bad teams. Northwestern, Rutgers, Duke, et cetera, et cetera. There's no bad team. They're all good. Even Auburn. Auburn could have an ugly record this year. Are they a talented team with NFL players? Yes.
They're what you call a capable team. They could beat a Arkansas, a Mississippi State, an Ole Miss. They're not a layup.
It would be fascinating if we could take a team from different divisions and move them somewhere else. I would love to take a Mississippi State and put them in the ACC Coastal.
Do you think they would win the ACC Coastal? Because I think maybe they could, honestly, with how bad it's been. Especially the year Pitt won it with going 7-5.
Yeah,
I mean,
those seasons. I'm even talking about this year. They'd have a good shot. Sure.
Yeah. So, Mark, I'm trying to understand why people hate the SEC. Is it jealousy? Is it because there's this conspiracy that it's bias? What is it that causes people to root collectively against the SEC?
I think it has everything to do with winning. I don't know that it has much to do with anything else. Take the Chicago Bulls. When they were Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls, people hated the Bulls. People hate the Patriots. People get sick of winning teams. Now we can dissect that. I'm being very general, but I think that's the overriding reason. Now, non-SEC fans will make claims that, and I think it's justified, that you're a Kentucky fan. Why are you latching on to the SEC? Putting your team and your program behind the SEC shield, and then everything that the SEC accomplishes, i.e. Alabama, Georgia, somebody else, you take credit for it. So I think there's something to be said about that. You hear more from SEC fans in terms of taking on conference pride. I don't think there's any question. There's more conference pride among SEC fans than any other conference. Now, if the SEC was the Pac-12, I think some of that would still exist just because I think it's bred into that region of the country. But obviously, there wouldn't be much to brag about.
Right, and that's where I was going to go with it. If you're a Vanderbilt fan, I mean, you could chant SEC all you want, but you can't even beat UConn without coming down to a last-second field goal. I mean, there's a fine line. I feel like you have to be at least a capable SEC team. If you go 2-10, 1-11, 3-9, something like that, then I can understand the coattails argument. But if you're going 9-4, 8-5, you're competitive.
As long as you're going out there yourself, your own team, and beating the teams in the other conferences that you're supposed to be matching up against.
Okay, and the final thing I'll do, Mark, is I'll throw a curveball scenario for your top 25 that makes sense, okay?
Love it. Yeah.
So Florida plays Utah and Kentucky weeks 1 and 2. If they win both of those games, are they going to be the number 1 team in the country in your poll?
Well, unless we can come up with somebody that's played 2 better teams, they will be the number 1 team in the country. Yes.
Okay, you heard it. You can
Yeah,
write
this is
that
going to
down.
blow people's minds. Yes, absolutely. Florida, I can't think of anybody that's playing that kind of competition back to back. Those are the first 2 games?
That is correct. And then their week 4 game is Tennessee. So I have a feeling they'll be up there if they go 4-0.
Yeah, think of any other team, and I can't come up with, of course, Ohio State doesn't follow up Notre Dame with anyone. They got Arkansas State. We can go through all the big matchups in either week 1 or week 2, and nobody plays. I don't think anybody plays 2 games like that. So yeah, Florida's number 1. If they beat Utah and Kentucky, yeah.
Okay, Mark, that's all I got. Hit the like and subscribe button.
Thanks, man. Oh, will I hear it? Will I hear it? I think we've got a caller coming in before Joey, but maybe having some technical issues. It says device not connected. So we're going to go right to Joey right here at the Voice of College Football. Joey, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, what's happening, buddy? So, am I hearing did I hear the real right that does he think Florida's the best team in the East?
No.
He thinks Kentucky's the best team in the East, right?
No.
No.
This is what
so he's not there. He don't take him over Georgia.
This is what you heard, Joey. What you heard is, I don't know if you're familiar with my top 25. So I released the top 25 during the season on Sunday morning. And it's called the top 25 that actually makes sense, because it does make sense as opposed to the other top 25s we see out there. So I evaluate the teams strictly based on the results on the field. So if you're just talking about week 1, week 2, especially early in the season, some people get a dose of the top 25 that they don't necessarily understand or like. It gets people pissed off because I'm ranking teams based on, if West Virginia beats Pitt in week 1, that's going to be one of the more quality wins in college football. So West Virginia, I am going to rank that. I don't care what the preseason perception was, 5.5 wins by Vegas, any of that crap. West Virginia will have a win against Pitt. They will probably have one of the 10 or 12 best wins in the country, something in that range. And I'm going to rank them appropriately. They're going to be like ranked 10th or 11th in the country. And I know people are going to tear me apart and say, they're not the 10th best team in the country. I understand that. But after only 1 game, they will have had the 10th or, I'm just ballparking it, best resume in the country. So that's what he's sizing up, that Florida plays Utah and Kentucky the first 2 weeks and said, because he knows how I do my rank, this is going to be number 1 in the country if they win those 2 games. And I said, yeah, without knowing everybody's schedule off the top of my head, probably, yes.
Yeah. So, well, I don't think Florida will beat Utah, and I'm sure you're probably not going to take that game either. I would think Utah will beat Florida. So, okay, I was wondering about that, but so I was going to call in and also say that I think there's a chance that Kentucky could win the East this year. I'm not saying they're the best team in the East. I think Georgia is. But if Kentucky can pull off an upset, there's a chance they could win the East this year. I think they're that good.
We've got Georgia at home.
So I think that, that, of course, a lot of people are saying Georgia in the East. I think I've seen polls with Georgia, Florida, then Kentucky. Mine would have been Georgia, Kentucky, then maybe Florida. But I'm really high on Kentucky this year. I'm high on Mark Stoops. I think he's a fantastic coach.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm so high on Kentucky. And of course, the West, everybody knows that Alabama's the team to beat there. But Texas A&M was able to get it done last year. If they're able to do it again this year, they may be the front runners in the West. Because Texas A&M is going to be pretty daggone good this year too. So if they can somehow get by Alabama, which I don't see them beating Alabama 2 years in a row, but if they can do it, then there's a chance. And then we could have something shape up at the end of the year where it'd be Texas A&M and Kentucky for the SEC championship. That would be pretty interesting for a change.
Yeah, it would be nice to see something different for sure.
Yeah,
you, Joey.
I'd like to see something different, and I'd like to see something different in the Big 12. We've seen last year when we had Baylor and Oklahoma State. That's great, but I'd like to see West Virginia and Baylor or West Virginia and Oklahoma State play. Of course, as being a West Virginia guy. The ACC was different. There was a lot of differences last year around the country. The ACC, you had Pitt and Wake Forest, which was a lot different. So I like that that there's been some then different schools winning here lately, and it looks like things run in cycles. We know that. Back in the early 2000s, Alabama wasn't real great. They're one of the better teams in the country every year now. And, I think things will flip again. And I just think that the SEC's like flipping. I think it's starting to flip right now. I think Kentucky's getting better. I think Florida's getting better. So I think that's going to start putting Georgia back. I think Texas A&M and Arkansas are getting better. And that's going to start challenging Alabama. So I think that the SEC is starting to flip as well, just like every other conference has. So
I ranked Mark Stoops as the 8th best coach in the country. That's where I've got him.
That's probably about right too. I mean, and he's what the 5th highest paid coach in the SEC. I think he's way up there in pay. So he's getting that worth too. A lot of coaches get big money, but they're not pulling in the wins. At least he's getting a good, decent pay and pulling in the wins for Kentucky. So, but anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Is I like to see the SEC start flipping, and it looks like it really is. We'll have to see at the end of this year how close people are to taking over Alabama and Georgia. But I don't, But also, everybody, be sure and join us in the Discord channel. Each night we have a stream in there. We have some fun. We all get together. Generally, me and Exploring with Ben and Sam, Tim Prangley, One Scoop John. We have Jordan, the Clemson fan, Jordan. Oh my goodness, can't remember his last name. Jordan Bowman. Yeah, we have a lot of it,
and delivered one of the most insightful, knowledgeable calls in a long time.
He is so knowledgeable, football knowledgeable. I mean, he's fantastic. He is absolutely awesome, and I'm going to have him on a show that I do on Discord, not on your channel, on another channel. I won't advertise, but I'm going to have him on that show with me here real soon. So
other shows, other channels. I think we'll still survive here.
Oh, I know. So, but yeah, I'm going to have him over on Discord, on Golden Blue Dudes Discord one night, because he is really, really knowledgeable about football. That's for sure. Okay, Mark. Well, I'll let somebody else call in and things. Thanks for taking my call, man. And you have a good night.
Thanks, Joey. Appreciate the support. Before we get to the next call, we got Bird on the line, and we'll grab him in just 2 shakes. I can't find the comment here, but I believe it was, Billy Tuesday, who we appreciate being here. And I actually just built a slide that I'd like to throw out there here at some point in the show. But anyway, honoring some of our Discord and Patreon members, Billy being one of the more recent ones, how can you make any real rankings after game one? I totally get your point, Billy. But you know what? If you want to take that logic, how can you do it after game two? How can you do it after game three? You've only played 3 teams out of 130. How can you do it after week 4? Well, where's the magic cutoff where you can make real rankings? You know what the real cutoff would be? After every team in the country has played everybody else in the country. So after we played 129 games, that's when we could truly make rankings. All right. We got Bert on the line. We're talking some SEC or whatever Bert's got for us tonight. How you doing tonight?
Good, man. How you doing?
I am doing just fine. What's up?
Appreciate what you do, by the way. I'm a South Carolina fan. I guess you can tell, and we're always optimistic. So I'll go ahead and tell you that I'm optimistic. To begin with, I was thinking we were 7-5 team this year. I think I want to say loaded. People will disagree with me on the offensive side of the ball this year. I wasn't really, I don't know Spencer Rattler that well. I kind of kept up with him when he was in the Elite 11 just because Ryan Holinsky had committed to South Carolina at that time, was also on the Elite 11 quarterback. So I knew a little bit about him then. But today I happened to watch a YouTube video that somebody posted, and it was every Spencer Rattler play from 2020. And it wasn't like a highlight film. It was every play. And it was a long video, to be honest. I didn't watch it all, but I did watch enough of it to realize that this guy has elite arm talent. He was making throws that not a lot of people can make, and the guys that can make it, most of them are playing on Sunday afternoon. So I'm even more optimistic just by watching him a little bit this afternoon. I think he has enough weapons around him to be really successful. My only question, and I really like the guy, I like Marcus Satterfield, but my only question is he did prove that he can be a big time offensive coordinator, and I'm hoping he can do it. Because I really like the guy. And I'm really sold on Shane Beamer. He's a great recruiter. It's no surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise to people that pay attention because he was the recruiting coordinator during Spurrier's years when we had those 11-win teams during the 10 through 13.
Hey, Bert, I'm sorry to cut you off here, but I'm sorry to cut you off. Just it's very difficult to hear you. Your audio is low and muffled, and we're getting a lot of calls in the comments in the chat concerning it. And I really can't hear you too well myself. Just sounds like you're high on South Carolina. Spencer Rattler, he's got some playmakers around him. That's about what I picked up. So,
Okay. All right, man. Sorry about that.
So Bert, feel free to call back anytime. Would love to hear from you. Just we can't hear you too well. All right, let's pick up the call from Randy coming in here on the Voice of College Football. Randy, how you doing tonight? Oh, Randy, we can't hear you.
How you doing tonight, Mark?
Doing well. What's going on?
Just wondering how why does certain questions apply to the A&M but not to other teams? Like A&M loses players and then they're always talked about, oh, they're young, but yet Alabama loses players and they're not young. Georgia uses players and they're not young. So why only to the Aggies when they have just as good recruit classes as Alabama, Georgia, and way better recruit classes than Mississippi, Arkansas, Auburn, but Aggies don't get that same respect.
Okay, so let me ask you first and foremost, not that it matters, but are you a Texas A&M fan?
Oh, yes.
Okay, all right. I'm only asking you that actually because I wanted to put your name up there. So Bert, so I think this has part to do with it. So you've been a Texas A&M fan for how long?
Shoot, since I went to school there I went to school back in '90. I was a freshman and then before then. So I've seen Aggie footballs since 1980.
Okay. Texas A&M last won a conference championship in what year?
1998.
Okay. So you've got an amazing football program. And when I say football program, I'm talking about the rabid fan base, the size of the fans. Expanding Kyle Field to 100 and a zillion thousand. I think it's 105 plus. All of that stuff, the
Exactly.
facilities, everything is amazing there. But it's been a long time since Texas A&M was winning conference championships. The early 90s, basically, was a good stretch,
Okay.
obviously, under R.C. Slocum. And then, 98, beat Kansas State in 98, won the Big 12, went to the Sugar Bowl that year. So the thing with Alabama, first and foremost, they're just kind of a different deal. But also Georgia under Kirby Smart, and to a certain extent under Mark Richt, is they prove that regardless of who they lose, that it just almost doesn't matter. They've proven that over and over and over. I think that's the difference.
Okay, that's understandable. But if you had the number 1 class, number 3 class, number 7 class, how is that not respectable considering everybody else's recruiting class?
Because you went, what, 8-5, 9-4, 9-1, 8-4 under Jimbo Fisher.
Okay, but did the other teams? Yet that's what I'm saying. The same arguments that are used against A&M, all the other teams get passes on. A&M played the whole season last year with a backup quarterback.
Sure. So, okay, so you're wanting people to believe that Texas A&M is what? You're ranked 7th in the coaches poll preseason.
Exactly, but yet people saying, "Oh, that's overrated." Greg McElroy comes up there, "Oh, they're overrated because they're young." I mean, you got one of the most dynamic playmakers in college football, Devon Achane, but yet you're over there ranking a running back that hasn't even played in the SEC above him, Gibbs from that's at Alabama. Come on, he ain't no Devon Achane.
Well, that remains to be seen. We don't know. I'm not going to make a call on that, but yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs was playing at Georgia Tech. Devon Achane is a phenomenal back who had the best yards per carry average in the nation last year. Here's what I'll say, Bert. This is what makes it difficult for Texas A&M. Do I believe that Texas A&M is one of the 7 best football teams in the country? Yeah, probably. They're right in that range. Do I know that they're going to come through and win the games that they need to finish? They're probably going to have to go 11-2 this year to finish in that range, number 7 in the country. And because the schedule's so difficult, do I believe that they're, again, one of the 7 best, most talented teams? Yes. But they're not playing in the ACC. They're not playing in the Pac-12. They got to go through that schedule.
Yes. So, but at the same time, what Arkansas lost the top number 1 draft pick at wide receiver.
Yep.
The recruits that the defensive backs, defensive starters at linebacker, and you're gonna say that they have more talent than Texas A&M? No, they don't.
Well, no, they don't. They don't have as talented a roster as Texas A&M. There's no question about that. And they're 23rd in the coaches poll.
So would you pick their coach over Jimbo Fisher?
I'm starting to believe that. Yeah. I don't know. That's a tough call. Well, I'm looking at my coaches rankings right now because of what the other caller said about Mark Stoops. I got Jimbo at 7. I got Sam Pittman at 15. So technically, no.
And then another thing, the Aggie defense last year only over 30 points one time the whole season. And I think the most they gave up was to the LSU. So they averaged like only 17 points a game. Somewhere around that, no more than 20.
So for some reason, Bert, we're losing you here a little bit. So we're not able to hear what you just said.
I said the Aggie defense only gave up 20 points a game last year. Was ranked in the top 20. So they'll improve even though the ones they lost. You're bringing in five stars on the defensive line.
Bert, here's my basic take. I'm sorry to cut you off. You completely cut out, and I thought you were done. Here's my basic take on Texas A&M. If you look at Jimbo Fisher, season 5, facilities, recruiting, all that, put all that together, this program is riding high. It's on the upward swing, no doubt. But when I look at, okay, we got a quarterback competition between Haynes King, who won the job last fall, but got hurt in game 3, so he hasn't proven anything. And we got Max Johnson, who's a good quarterback, but I don't know that anybody's going to rank Max Johnson as anywhere inside the top 20 quarterbacks in the country. So you've got a decent quarterback situation. And despite all the talent you've got on defense, that front 7 got torn to shreds, meaning leaving. You lost a lot of players in the front 7. Your wide receiver core has been disappointing the last several years. So there's a lot of questions about this team. I don't know that this is really your year this year. I think it might be 23.
Okay. I can understand that.
And I might
but
be
I
wrong.
still think I still think A&M is going to surprise some people in the end.
Okay. What does that mean? Like,
I think they'll win the games that they're supposed to win.
Okay.
But then they did that in 2020, and they still didn't get no respect. You know, they only lose to Alabama, but you still don't make the playoff. Why?
Well, yeah, you're right. You could make a case between them and Notre Dame.
And that was all SEC. That was an all SEC schedule.
Sure, it was an all SEC schedule, but I don't think you want me to go through Texas A&M's 2020 schedule because it wasn't that tough.
So, but they played Tennessee. They played
Exactly.
Alabama. That's the only game they lost.
This,
they beat Florida, top 5 Florida team. They beat LSU. Yeah. Just because they have a down year, that's not A&M's fault.
So
is it?
Texas A&M beat Texas A&M in 2020 beat 2 teams with winning records, and one of them was 6-5 Auburn.
So you're gonna hold that because the A&M, because the other teams have a bad losing schedule or down year, that's A&M's fault.
No, I didn't say it was their fault, but you're just telling me that they played. Bert, you're just telling me that they played. Hey, Bert, I apologize if I'm cutting you off. It's because your audio is low and sometimes I can't hear you.
Okay.
Here's the deal, Bert. It's not Texas A&M's fault. They played an all SEC schedule. I'm just pointing out the facts that they only beat 2 teams with winning records in 2020, and one of them was 6-5 Auburn. That's all I'm saying. That's the truth.
Alabama played the same schedule pretty much, didn't they?
Yeah, but they also went and won a national championship, and they also beat.
I'm just saying, they only won 2 more games more than we did.
Well, come on, you're not comparing Texas A&M in 2020 to Alabama in 2020.
I'm just saying it's the same thing.
Well, it's not the same thing.
In the Orange Bowl.
They played, and Alabama won by 4 touchdowns.
Okay, then A&M beat them last year, and then what do they get? Oh, Alabama played a bad game. A&M took that game.
Well, yeah, they took that game.
Did they not?
You can't just show up one time in a football season. You got to show up week after week after week. So you can't beat Alabama and lose to Arkansas and all these other teams that they lost to. They lost 4 games in the SEC. They went 4-4 in the SEC.
All right. So I'll hold that to you at the end of the year if they run that. But if they run that table and do it this year, then what excuses you're gonna have?
Well, they need to do it I'm not gonna have any excuses. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm just gonna tell the truth. Is all I'm gonna do.
I hear you.
So yeah, Texas A&M goes, let's say 11-1. I'm gonna, against their schedule, I'm gonna say this is one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the country.
So yeah, they will be if they do that. When you look at a team like Texas, you look at a team of Texas who gets a a 5-star quarterback, and now they're supposed to win the Big 12 just because they get a 5-star quarterback from Ohio State that didn't even start or took one snap and didn't even throw the ball at Ohio State. Come on.
Well, Bert, see, some of your argument though, you're talking about things that I don't know. Like when you say we don't get any respect, and everybody's talking about Texas. You're right. Texas hasn't done anything outside of one season since 2009. But yeah, they got a 5-star quarterback, but that's not all they picked up. Texas picked up a lot, and I'm the first person to diss Texas and tell them that they need to show up on the field and do something. I'm the first person to say that. But people are giving Texas. People are putting expectation on Texas because they did acquire a lot of personnel. Now, one of them went off the deep end in the last day or two, Ajay Hall, and who knows what's going to happen with him. But Texas is an interesting team, and you'll get to see them every year here pretty soon.
Yep, it would be fun again. It will be real fun again. Well, I can't wait for the season. Hope it's a good one.
All right, sir. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you. You too.
Have a good night.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, Texas A&M fan. And I hope I got his name right because I saw, anyway, I'm not going to go through that. Anyway, sometimes if you don't identify yourself, so I'm asking everyone, please identify yourself in the private chat because I want to be able to put a banner up there to let everyone know who we're talking to. All right, we got J-Dub on the line. We believe I've got a beat on who I'm talking to right now. J-Dub, what's going on?
Hey, good evening, Mark. These the Aggie fans, just win. Don't beat Bama twice in 12 years by slim margins, and then in all the other years get your head handed to you on a silver platter. Don't beat us with your quarterback having the game of his life that he'll never rematch, and then go lose to Mississippi State, who Alabama beat 49-9. You got to be consistent, A&M. You got to show up every single week. That's what's the problem for Bama. We're everybody's Super Bowl. Every game we show up in is their game of the year. But that's okay. That's a problem I'd like to have. I'd rather be in that position than be the Mississippi State that shows up and they're just like, well, that's just somebody from the conference. Georgia has learned that lesson. Georgia has learned you've got to show up every single week. Rick was getting that lesson installed. Kirby took that lesson from what he learned under Saban and transported it to Athens, and we see the results. All these recruits don't mean anything. They've got to pan out. Alabama has had, I had a friend of mine send me a very interesting number. Since 2015, listen to this now, since 2015, 59 commitments from Alabama have never played for the Crimson Tide. They transferred out. They didn't make the squad. We had back-to-back years where we had top 2 defensive edge rushers in the entire country. Neither one of them played a down for the Crimson Tide. So the talent you get, you have to develop it. You have to do something with it. Half of these kids, no matter what their stars are not going to work out. Jimbo's got to figure out he's got all this glitter, but he's got to turn the glitter into gold. What do you think, Mark?
Well, I pointed that out as best I could to our previous caller because he came in basically saying, why is Texas A&M not getting any respect and all that business? Well, the first thing I was trying to point out was anytime I hear that we're underrated, we don't get any respect, I'm like, okay, where are you hearing this from? Like I don't know where we're hearing this from, first and foremost. Number 2, let's assume, okay, you're right, you're getting disrespected. Well, you're 7th in the preseason coaches poll, and just about every magazine in America has Texas A&M somewhere between number 5 and number 10 in the country. Based on what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years under Jimbo Fisher, why do they deserve or have earned anything more than that? And he's and our buddy Randy, the last caller, basically said, "Oh, well, we recruited all these great players." And I said, "Well," and then he says Alabama and Georgia recruit great players too, but they suffer just as many personnel losses as we do. But why does everybody rank them so high? I'm like, because they've proven over, especially Alabama, but also Georgia under Kirby, they've proven over and over and over and over and over that they're going to be there. So we're not looking at a situation where we're still waiting for Texas A&M to pull through. Like I said to him, I said, when is the last time you won a conference championship? 1998. That was a long time ago, and that was another conference.
Well, what you got to do is, if you're Alabama, you lose 8 players out of the first 38 picks in the draft. 8 of them are yours. You turn around and you get back to the Natty. Georgia loses all these players, and they're a serious threat. No one thinks that they're not a serious threat to get back to the playoffs, maybe even the Natty again this year. That's when you know you're consistent, when you can take those hits,
yeah,
and still get there. I have to say about the SEC, in a more general picture, I'm a Bama alum, and I'm proud of the SEC. I like that we're in a great conference.
Sure.
And of course, yes, I want the other schools to be good, because then you're beating quality opponents. You're not beating up on the weak sisters every week, which inflates your own value. So I like it that Alabama has to beat quality SEC teams. But I am not what a majority of these SEC fans seem to be, and that they're just absolutely blind, want the conference to win everything. I'm kind of a Bama grad, but I'm kind of a hypocrite. I like the conference to do well, but I'll never root for anybody else in the conference. I don't ever want Tennessee to win a game. I might root for Auburn against ISIS. I mean, if Auburn played the national team of Iran, I might root, I probably wouldn't root for Auburn. I would just hope that Iran lost. So I don't have this blind loyalty where it's, SEC. It just only in as much as it arrogantly helps Alabama by having the rest of the conference good.
So the LSU Clemson national championship game, did you have a rooting interest?
Yes, I did. I could not actively hope that LSU won, but I was still stinging from 2016, not 2018. The 2018 blowout loss to Clemson doesn't hurt me as a Bama fan, because they just completely demolished us. They stole our manhood. The 2016, that's a natty that got away from us. We let that get away.
Sure.
Or it would have been a three-peat. That's what hurt. So I wanted Clemson to lose that, and then Bama could say, well, LSU, their toughest game was against us, and they won the Natty, and that's 3 for them this century. Makes the conference look good. Yeah, but it was tough. It was tough.
Okay. Just curious.
And I'll say also, and I'm curious as to what maybe the chat room thinks about this, because there's a lot of people in the chat I'm seeing right now whose opinions I value, and yours as well, of course, Mark, is how much of the dynamic in SEC loyalty is also the fact that you do have you've got the Saints, the Falcons, the Titans. You do have a few professional teams, but most of these states are not heavily invested in their professional sports teams.
Yeah, has a lot to do.
They're not and certainly not like the upper Midwest,
Yeah, because like you say, it's a different NFL scene in the South than it was just 20 or 25 years ago, because you do have more teams, but roots run deep. And the roots for most football fans in the South, yeah, they may now root for Jacksonville. If you live in northern Florida, you may be like a casual Jacksonville Jags fan because, hey, it's cool, we got an NFL team, but it's nothing close to I'm a Gator fan. And like you say, in terms of long-standing NFL franchises, shoot, the Saints and the Falcons, I don't consider those long-standing NFL franchises. They're not like
Right.
the Bears and the Packers from the 30s, the beginning of the league. Though you're talking 66, 67, and those are the two long-standing NFL teams in the South. So NFL football in the South is very new, historically speaking.
Yeah, and you had when Bryant was making his run in Tuscaloosa in the 60s and the 70s, the NFL team in the NFL team in the South was who? The Saints and maybe the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Which is not really the South. It's Miami. No. That was AF, that was not until the late 60s. So, I mean, the who's your grandpa rooting for? The generational love is not in the NFL. Like my grandparents were diehard Bear fans, going back to the Hallis days of the 50s and the 60s.
Sure.
And they remember Butkus and Sayers and and all those teams, and they can remember Bart Starr playing for the Packers and all that goes back, and Otto Graham for Cleveland.
Yeah.
There's just all the history that works for the SEC's favor to make them their fans so passionate for the college game. A lot of that passion is in the NFL around the Great Lakes and the industrial Midwest. So, I mean, it's not like one's more important than the other. I think that plays into why there's such a difference in conference loyalty between the SEC and the Big Ten. It's not that Big Ten fans don't love the Big Ten. It's just, you go to an Iowa game, nobody's chanting Big Ten, Big Ten,
Well, I think I've been around it long enough in different areas of the country, Midwest, Northeast, and in the South, and covered it in all those spots. And obviously talking to all of you on a regular basis and watching it for as long as I have, I think this is pretty confirmed. There's more conference pride in the SEC among SEC fans than any other conference. I also think clearly there's more conference pride in the Big Ten among Big Ten fans than the rest of the conferences. The other three, I wouldn't be able to distinguish there being any more in the ACC versus the Big 12 versus the Pac-12. It depends on the person at various levels. But I think the SEC is clearly number one and the Big Ten number two, ironically, both on the field, but also in terms of just, fan pride in their conference. And the point that you bring up is interesting because I've long held the belief that what you just frameworked, we both did about the South and the newness of NFL football in the South versus the Midwest. That it's somewhat, I don't know if impressive is the right word, but admirable maybe, that Big Ten fans are as staunch college football fans as they are, because really the NFL, most of the older traditional franchises are in that same footprint. Like you say, the Browns, the Lions, the Bears, the Packers, the Vikings, even to this point, are now 62 years old. So there's both strong college football and NFL football ties in Big Ten country.
Well, I appreciate that. I just thought we would take a different look at that, and instead of just talking about Bama and Georgia, we talk about the conference as a whole. Everybody, please, you know the drill. We've been down the road before. It doesn't change your experience. The Amazon link, match the thumbs up button, and not only that, tell people about Mark. Don't just come in here and enjoy it and then keep it as a secret. Let your buddies know, hey, you got to get over here to this. Share the stream. Share it. Go on and tell your Facebook friends, your Instagram friends, hey, this is Mark Rogers guy, blah, blah, blah. That's how we increase the audience. That's how we keep it going. Mark, I'm out of here. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks for you having me on. Great weekend, everyone.
Appreciate that, J-Dub. It's our guy, J-Dub from Iowa. Alabama fan, J-Dub. Always a good historical and current perspective on things. I hate to leave a comment on the screen for so long because I try to get, I don't know if you guys really care, but if you've noticed through the years, I try to get as many comments to the screen as possible. If you guys are having your own discussions in there, then I leave those alone. But in regards to any type of statements, comments, questions that are for the entire conversation that we're having, I try to get those to the screen. So I hate to leave a comment on the screen for a long time, but I wanted to address this. So Shorsey, first of all, Mark tried to say Ohio State looks beyond winning the Big Ten. First of all, I have no idea what that means. I don't know what I said that would cause you to state that Ohio State looks beyond winning the Big Ten. Yeah, Ohio State does have goals beyond winning the Big Ten. Yes, Ohio State does have goals beyond winning the Big Ten. I personally, if I was a head coach and I was at a place like Ohio State where it was a national championship or bust, but you can't win the national championship. You can't win the national championship in September. You can't win it in the regular season. I wouldn't even think about that, talk about that, nothing. It would be all win all our games, win the Big Ten championship. That's all I would talk about. Just because it's like being in the NFL. You can't win this and saying, we're going to win the Super Bowl. Well, you can't win the Super Bowl until you go to the playoffs. So get to the playoffs first, and then you can say, okay, we got to win the next game. So anyway, I don't know what you're talking about because, first of all, I don't try to say anything. I either say it or I don't say it. I don't try to say anything. And I'm not trying to be difficult here, Shorsey, because I just want to figure out exactly what you're saying, and I'll pick off your next comment. And then you say to do what? Get your blank kicked by the SEC every year. Okay, let's see. During the playoff era, Ohio State has played the SEC twice, and they have played the best program in the country twice, and they won one, and they lost one. So I'm trying to weigh the comment, get your blank kicked every year by the SEC versus being 1-1. Like the math equation is way off on that one. So again, you guys know what you get here. We correct comments that are faulty and off base. All right, Shorsey, where's your next comment? It's lost at this point. I don't know where it is. So Shorsey was going to further explain where he was headed with that. There he is. Mark, you said yesterday OSU looks at winning the Big Ten as a foregone conclusion. Well, I don't know exactly. I don't know what you're alluding to, but I didn't state it in that manner. They didn't win it last year. They have had a number of years. They did not win it. It's not a foregone conclusion. Yeah, I would have to go to the conversation that we're talking about here. Anyway, Ferris, appreciate you being here, and everybody else. George, great to see you. The Daniel Henry, good to see you as well. I thought the real MVP had a really interesting point that he brought up that we could take off on a video. Maybe I'll look at that this week. Basically, what would have to happen in college football for another conference to be considered the best at the end of the season? Now, obviously, I could have a 10-second video and say the SEC loses every game. Okay. But something more reasonable than that. Lemansky, appreciate you being here. Bullseye accuracy. Thanks for working with Corey Brada. Absolutely. I'm glad that Corey found me on Twitter. That happened, what, about 8-9 months ago? I get this guy from Iowa saying, hey, we should do an Iowa channel. I'm like, okay. Sounds good. if you produce a bunch of content, come on here. So yeah, that's worked out really well. It's been great to have Corey on board, and he of course has a tremendous Iowa channel. Where were we headed? It's good to have Cheryl. Where's Cheryl? Cheryl. I believe she's here somewhere. I saw somebody reference Cheryl. So hopefully Cheryl's here and doing well. There she is. Good to see you, Cheryl. Think, folks, 2 weeks from tonight, we're going to be gearing up for the big Vandy, Hawaii game. Best program in the country, Clark Lee, Vandy. I love that he said that during SEC Media Days. I think that is phenomenal that he came out and said, we want to be the best football program in the country. I would love to know right now, what is Clark Lee's best record at Vandy going to be? I would guess probably 5-7. But that was phenomenal. Yes, easy money. It is the Cheryl. Yes. Cheryl is one of our mainstays. And Cheryl, there was several times that when we were in the midst of a chat here over the last several weeks that I thought, I need to email Cheryl and make sure she's doing fine. And I apologize for not actually doing that. Because I got to tell you, one of my weak spots is that I think of like 49 things during these live streams. Oh man, somebody just said that. That would be great for a video. Or, oh yeah, I got to get back to that person. And it's gone. It's gone. And I need to write it down. I know. All right, Joey, thanks for dropping the link there in the live chat. So Joey Foster, you see it right there. He just dropped the link and boom, we've got Mr. Florida Football here with us. Of course, college football, but of course, is George, and George is behind a fog or something. But just so we can hear you, George.
Hey, Mark.
There he is. How are you?
You're on my tablet.
Hey.
I'm not computer savvy. I'm amazed I can even do this.
The audio is clear. That's all we care about.
That's cool. Hey, I was listening to music when you called. Listen, can you hear this?
I just wiped out my monetization for this video.
All right, I'm sorry. That was Days of the New. It's called Shelf in the Room.
Yes, you probably just played copyrighted music. So anyway, well, why was that necessary for us to hear?
Because I'm high on life. We just got 2 top 100 commits today, or something like that.
See that. Let's give that a look. I should be on.
Are you serious? Are you serious?
Serious that I didn't see that? I can't do everything.
We're top. We're top. We went from number 50 to number 10 in like 2 weeks.
Yes, you did. Let's see. So, Kelby Collins, defensive lineman.
Yeah.
6th best defensive lineman in the country out of Alabama. And Will Norman, 21st rated defensive lineman out of Florida. Okay. 2 good pickups right there. Very nice.
No, they're both going to the NFL. Those are NFL defensive linemen. We're back. Just like Miami's back, Florida's back.
Hang on. You picked up 2 really good defensive linemen today. I don't think we're back to the Steve Spurrier days automatically. Hang on.
We're not done yet. We still got like 4 more spots.
No, that's good to see. I like that. I'd like to see Florida get back into it.
Me too. I'd like to see Ohio State get back into it too. Well, you can tell I'm just trying to start a fight. Is this like Ohio State's last year to win a national title before there is no more Big Ten? Because the SEC has all the good teams. This
No,
could be it.
You think that the Big Ten will just kind of wither away after this year?
I think of the Big Ten like I used to think of the Big 12 before they went out of business. You just don't have enough clout, you know?
The Big Ten
Not
doesn't
enough
have enough clout.
Yeah, you're like, all of you are like Mississippi State level, you know?
All right, George. Yeah.
Sorry to bust your bubble, man, but
Well,
let me know
sorry to
next
put-
time you win it. Let me know next time you win a national title, you know?
okay.
Yeah, might be a while.
It might be a while, but if certainly yeah, if
You couldn't beat you guys couldn't beat Mike Leach. Mike Leach would blitzkrieg you guys. You're not gonna do it. Everybody wants to live in the sunny South with a lazy river and a cabana pool, you know? They don't want to be
the
in
lazy
Cleveland.
rivers and cabana pools in Mississippi. I lived in Mississippi. It wasn't. I actually lived in the rich part, what was considered the rich part of the state of Mississippi. Like I was told, Mark, don't travel like 75 miles west and go into the Delta. Like you wouldn't believe it.
Hey, I've been to Mississippi. My brother's lived there for 20 years. I know exactly what you're talking about. You know what's great when you are loved and accepted by the members of the community and you go anywhere and you don't have to worry because everyone knows who you are?
Mhm.
It doesn't get any better than that. I'm like, I'm in Mississippi and I'm protected. Like I'm Tony's brother, you know? Everyone's like, yeah, leave him alone. He's our friend. It was great. Mark, I went from Oregon to Mississippi.
Yeah.
And in Oregon, you can't smoke in the state. It's against the law to smoke in Oregon. You know that, right?
Yes, sure.
So I go to Mississippi and I'm in the convenience store in my brother's town. And there's a guy smoking a cigarette walking around in the convenience store while he shops. So I know what's going on immediately. And I take a cigarette out of my pocket and I light it up too. So now there's two of us smoking in a convenience store. This is like 5 years ago, you know? And then I went in the back, I bought a beer and I went in the back room at the convenience store and there was a pool table and there were people in there smoking marijuana underneath the outtake valve of the air conditioning system. And I sat there and drank my beer and smoked my cigarette and shared marijuana with those people in a convenience store in Mississippi. Everybody moved to Mississippi. It's absolute freedom. Nobody bothers you. They leave you alone. God bless Mississippi. I love that place. It's the last bastion of freedom in America.
All right, George, we got two people actually, I believe, that are waiting to talk about what are we talking about tonight? Oh, college football. We're talking about college football.
No. We were talking about Florida's great recruiting day and how Mississippi can probably beat Ohio State if they have to. All right.
Yeah.
I love you guys. Remember to write me in for president because if I'm called upon, I will serve.
Okay, very good.
There
so
you
the
go.
same Mississippi State team that couldn't beat Texas Tech or Memphis last year, they're going to beat Ohio State. Okay. All right, George. Have a good night.
I'm just giving you false hope.
All right. Let's keep going. We got Porter on the line. Porter, how's it going?
I got to follow George. My gosh, it's like
you do. Step it up.
It's like following the Beatles or Elvis or that's tough. Tough act. So,
yeah.
In fact, I'm hoping that George comes down to Jacksonville. George, I hope you're listening. We tailgate kind of near the news station right there between the stadium and the river in Jacksonville. Please come by our tailgate. I'd love to have a beer with you. So, go Gators. Not really, but hey, I think I bring getting back to kind of what I guess one of the themes of tonight is why don't other conferences have the pride that the SEC has?
Yeah.
And I think I bring a neat perspective. My mom is from Indiana. She went to IU.
Okay.
My dad is also from Indiana. He didn't go to a Big Ten school, but they were, raised up there. Anyway, we would go back to Central Indiana for Christmas. And there was one Christmas where I got a present from my grandmother, and it was every single pennant from the Big Ten. They were nice pennants. They were, cloth, kind of those old timey ones. And my grandmother was just so happy when she gave that to me because she knew how much I love sports. And then follow that up. Go ahead.
Excuse me.
And then follow that up with, we moved into a neighborhood in Metro Atlanta when I was 5 years old. And then 1979 comes a few years later, and it's the year that Ohio State made the run to the Rose Bowl with Schleister. And, Alabama was undefeated. They played Arkansas earlier that day in the Sugar Bowl. And Alabama needed Ohio State to lose that night in the, and I know you and I have talked about this. I know what a heartbreaking loss that was to Southern Cal. But I remember my mom I went to in my old neighborhood in Metro Atlanta, we had, January 1st was like this day where everybody watches football the whole day, all the bowl games. And that's kind of where I developed my love of college football, just those type of interactions. And obviously here in the South, they love college football. So that was already embedded in everyone that I was at this party with. And I was just young. I was only 10. But the thing is, my mom, I'll never forget this. My mom, before I went out the door to go to this party, she said, now make sure you pull for Ohio State because we're Big Ten people. We need Ohio State to win the national championship. And that always stuck with me. And my point, the reason why I'm saying all these stories, and I don't mean to bore the chat room or whatever, is Big Ten people have just as much pride in their conference as SEC people. They just don't have all the championships and all the varied teams that have won championships. That's why you don't see that Big Ten pride as much as you do the SEC. So I always remember those kind of anecdotal examples of that kind of, hey, we're Big Ten people, we root for the Big Ten. So you're kind of rolling your eyes or kind of scrutinizing what I'm saying. Do you not agree?
I somewhat agree. So I do believe that SEC football fans generally have, and I've got no way to measure this. This is just based on what I see on television, what we discuss here, what I've known, what I've perceived, and what I've experienced by living in the Midwest for half of my life, living in the Northeast, working for a certain company for half my life, but 7 years covering SEC football, and not covering it like I cover it now, covering it on the sideline, in the press box, in the locker room, all that. I do think that because of a number of things that we've talked about tonight, there being NFL teams, well-established historical NFL teams in the Midwest, it's just everybody only has a certain amount of attention span and time in their lives to devote to entertainment / sports. So it's only natural that if you have an NFL team, and the NFL is the most popular sport in America, that your attention, your pride, all of that is going to be taken up to a certain extent. That your loyalties are going to be split to a certain extent versus being just, okay, we live in Mississippi. There's not an NFL team within 5 hours of here. We root for Ole Miss or Mississippi State. The other thing, so that's where I somewhat disagree with you. Where I agree with you is I think you brought up a really good point about it's easy to have pride and then be vocal about it when your conference is winning national championships. So maybe you don't have any more pride. You're just free to communicate and shout out loud on social media and otherwise about that pride, because people like to brag. People like to be attached to winners. And when they are, you're going to boast about that, versus somebody can be just as loyal of a Big Ten fan. But if the Big Ten rep just got blasted in the playoffs, what are they going to say? They're not going to say the Big Ten's the best conference in America. True.
Yeah, but I see people on chat boards and stuff like that where, like, for instance, before Georgia and Alabama got to the playoff this year, they were talking about how the Big Ten had this. Maybe it wasn't this past year. It was something where the Big Ten had a really good bowl record for some of the minor bowls against the SEC. It was like maybe the Outback or the Music City or whatever, and it was like this kind of boasting. And then once the playoff started, that kind of went out the window. So I don't know. I don't know. It just seems like for my cousins in Indiana, and obviously when my mom was keeping up with sports, it just seemed to be kind of this boastful, hey, we're Big Ten people, we root for the Big Ten, and I don't know. It just seems like that. I don't know. This kind of arrogance that Big Ten people have about, we're just above that. And I don't believe that at all. I think Big Ten people are just as proud of their conference as the SEC. They just don't have the championships the SEC has. And when you see the tremendous, and again, I don't like to throw out records on this whole forum. I don't like, beating my chest or whatever. I think this is should be more of a forum of people that just love the sport, want to talk about their teams or whatever. But you have to admit, when you have 6 different teams that won national championships since the BCS era, I mean, that's just, you can't, there's nothing you can say about that compares.
Well, Porter, you should know you're talking to the wrong person. So there's something I can say about it. Bottom line, yeah, you're right. The SEC has been the best conference since the BCS started. I don't think it was the best conference necessarily. I think there was an argument there for the first 6-7 years of the BCS, but then in the mid 2000s, 05, 06, the SEC took over. But anyway, and there is a difference between who has the best team or the best teams, 2 or 3, versus who has the best conference, top to bottom. That's not necessarily always going to be the same. It's most likely going to be the same. But let's understand that while the SEC is capitalized on its playoff appearances and BCS championship game appearances, the SEC has been given, and I use the word given, have the teams earned it? Yes, they have earned it, but it's not the NFL playoffs. They didn't go out and earn based on a formula a playoff spot. They were given. It's an invitational, both the BCS and the playoff. The SEC has been given many more slots than any other conference, both in the BCS era and the playoff era. So when you're given more opportunities, in 2011, how could the SEC not win the national championship, for example?
Well, going back to the BCS era, I think you had the 2 best teams in 2011. I think it was pretty obvious, and I understand that.
The 2 best teams, yes, I believe those were the 2 best teams, but those should not have been the 2 teams playing in the national championship game.
I totally agree about that. You're exactly right about that. But let me counter what you just said. You said the SEC has not earned it's not the NFL playoffs. They've not won their way into the playoff. I disagree. Based on, let's go back. There's only been one and done team from the SEC make the playoff.
Okay, I'm not talking about
So
what they've done with the opportunities. I'm talking about being gifted the opportunities. And
but those
I'm
are
not
earned. Those are earned. I mean, you can't tell me that.
No, they're earned to a certain extent, and this is why we need an expanded playoff. There have been teams left out that had just as good a qualifications as a team from the SEC. I can go through a number of years.
I agree. I think probably the one that I think about the most is 2014 TCU was an outstanding team. I hate they didn't get a chance, but you have to admit when an SEC team, other than Alabama in 2014, the first year of the playoff, you have to admit when an SEC team goes to the playoff, they win. They don't go one and done. That goes for LSU. That goes for Georgia. Georgia both times. They won against Oklahoma, won against Michigan.
That's not my
Alabama.
point.
What's that?
I already stated that. That's not my point. My point is we can go through a number of years in the playoff and more so in the BCS era in which the SEC was given the opportunity and other conferences with other teams that had just as valid a resume were not. They've been given more opportunities.
Yeah, I understand that. But my point is when given the opportunity, the SEC capitalized.
Yeah, I said the same thing. Yeah.
Yep. So when you develop a reputation of losing like Oklahoma in the playoff, the Big 12 should not get the benefit of the doubt. The SEC should.
I don't think there should be a doubt. We shouldn't have people selecting playoff spots.
Well, I mean, I disagree about that, but you and I both agree that I didn't know you were for the expansion of the playoff. So I'm glad to hear that you're now in favor of that, because you and I went back and forth one night about the expansion, and I've
always wanted the expansion. Shoot, I wrote a paper on it when I was 16 years old. I was thinking about that in 1984.
You just don't want the 12 team where you get the bye. Is that correct?
I don't want buys.
Okay. All right.
They're unfair.
So
you've explained why you don't mind the buys.
Well, obviously I don't mind the buys. I love the buys because I love the scenario. Like I said before, I love this. If I'm Texas A&M in 2020 and it's a 12-team playoff, heck yeah, let somebody else go to the SEC and get their brains beat in. I'll be happy to stay at home and wait for my first round championship or first round game in the playoff. I'll be happy to do that. I mean, the playoff is what it's about now. I don't really care about conference championships. I mean, they're nice banners to put up, but it's all about the playoff now. And once your team has been there and has been there, more than once, you kind of get addicted to it. I hate to say it, and I love being there. It's an amazing event, but I am for expansion. So what do you want, an 8-team playoff?
Well, before I answer that question, I wish in a way that we could go back to, and I know I push hard on here, playoff, expanded playoff. I've been talking about it since I started the channel. That was 12 years ago. And like I say, I wrote a paper that was probably that thick in 1984 when I was like a junior in high school on expanding the college football playoff to 16 teams. Anyway, but part of me wishes when you say conference championships don't mean anything, you know what? In a sense, you're right, but I hate that. I grew up thinking the Big Ten championship was everything. And thinking, you know what? I even knew at the age of 9 or 10 years old, this whole national championship thing is a bit of a joke. I even realized that at like 9 years old, thinking, who are these knuckleheads that get to vote on this? And I could even look and say, they beat them and them. Why are they there? These guys don't know what they're doing. Shoot, I was freaking 9 years old. And I could figure out that a bunch of newspaper AP writers didn't know what the hell they were doing then. So I was like, this national championship thing is a joke. I got to find out the next morning after New Year's Day who won the national championship. Well, that's a joke. And now in 3 weeks, I'm going to watch the NFL playoffs and the Super Bowl. That's the way. Oh, yeah. So I was more like, okay, Big Ten championship, Rose Bowl. That's what matters.
And I
wish
respect
we could
that.
get
I mean,
back to that, because a conference championship should mean the SEC championship should be enormous. And maybe we should just leave everybody out, just conference championships. And then you know what? That conference championship would mean everything.
yes, it would. But I don't see that ever happening. I think you're going to go to at
Oh, it's not going to happen. No.
What? So what is your model then? What do you?
If we got to play in video games and these guys didn't get hurt and we didn't need to worry about them playing too much football, I'd go 16 teams. I'd love that.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's not fair to the kids. That's too many games.
So it's 8.
8. Okay. So 5 conference champions and then 3 at-larges?
3 at-large, either with or without the group of 5 being formally included or excluded. I don't care. Do it one way or the other. I don't want them to be in this vague place where, are they included this year? No. Yeah, they're good enough. No, they're. I don't want Cincinnati playing a crappy schedule, but they get in because they're undefeated. I don't care either way. Either the best group of 5 gets in, and that's their one spot, or exclude them completely and say, we don't care if you beat everybody 60-0. Nobody's getting in from the group of 5. Play your own playoff if you want to.
Yeah,
one or the other.
I like that, including the group of 5. I think it's you like I always say, I love the sport. I want to do what's best for the sport, and I think someone who's at Memphis doing 2 days right now should have a shot at getting in, just like somebody at Oklahoma should have a shot to get in. And I what do you think about making that one spot for the group of 5? They have to get within. They have to be at a certain ranking to get into that spot.
No. We're going back to putting power into the hands of people voting on rankings. I don't trust those people.
Well, you're going to have to with
no, you don't have to.
At the at large.
Why?
The at large, you have to have.
Nope.
How do you determine the at large?
Well, why rankings? These knuckleheads don't know how to rank teams. Why am I? I don't
understand what you're saying. I mean, you're saying you can't. You're not. I'm all for conference champions getting a direct, a bid into the thing. That's fine, but you're going to have at larges, and somebody has to vote on that. And
nope, they don't. Why?
Well, who would determine the at larges?
Record / strength of record. Okay. I posted the video where I went through the whole thing and said, we are choosing at-large teams based on your record, understanding that none of this should happen without fixing the schedule. The schedule has to be fixed first, because that obviously has a huge impact on the season. So Baylor can't play nobody like they always do, and USC play some murderer's row non-conference get. So the scheduling has to be fixed first. So I'm not going to go through that, but I've gone through it before, and we'll attack that next off season again. You got to fix the scheduling first, so it's equitable. And then you go by record and you go by strength of record, meaning how strong your performance was versus the difficulty of the schedule. And that's what you do. And you take people out of it.
Well, I mean, to me, you're just getting back to computers then, just like when in 2000 when Florida State went.
No, you're getting to the results on the field.
Well, Florida State lost to Miami, but Florida State played for the national championship. I mean, that was a computer-generated mistake in 2000. It wasn't a...
I'm not 100% on this, Porter, but I'm almost positive, because I've looked into this, that there is no BCS championship game outcome, meaning the 2 teams that were selected that weren't selected by the people. The vote was 2/3 of the deal. Like, if we looked up the AP rankings and the coaches poll rankings for that season, I think they put Miami in.
No, it was a computer. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know about that. Washington should have been in anyway.
What's that?
It shouldn't have been Miami. It should have been Washington.
Oh, Washington. Well, I don't.
Washington beat Miami.
Maybe I've been watching too many of the 30 for 30s and watched too much of the U to think it was it should have been Miami. But listen, we're getting in the weeds too much. I love the show. Hi to all my friends on the chat, and I'll let somebody else talk. So have a good night.
Thanks, Porter. Appreciate that. Our guy Porter. Good stuff right there. I could debate that all night. All right. Let's we got our man Michael.
Hey Mark, how you doing, sir?
Michael, how are you?
Not too bad, but I could be a little better for Saturday night. And yourself?
I am doing just fine. You know what, Michael? This is my message for you tonight. Somebody told me in the comment section earlier today that Purdue is going to finish in the top 25.
Yep. And I agree, but we'll see stuff like that. Got to be one game at a time, though. Anyway, back to what I was saying. When did you think? I mean, yeah, with the SEC started, but when do you think the tide actually started? No pun intended with Alabama, by the way. But when did you think the rule started to reverse into the SEC favor?
When did the SEC become the best conference?
Yeah, in your opinion, I mean, what made them besides become the best conference? Was it they just got the better players, or was it just a style of football?
That's most of it. Most of the best players in the nation in high school football are playing in Florida, Texas, and to a lesser extent, but still, man, Georgia's exploding. And for small states, Alabama and Louisiana pump out NFL players.
Yeah, but my question is, what made it switch instead of like the Big Ten, the Pac-12 having success in the 80s and 90s and stuff, even though Michigan was the first team in since Ohio State in the 60s to win a national championship when they won in 97?
Yeah, Ohio State 68.
And then Michigan, the 97 season.
Yeah.
But what made them say, all right, the SEC was like the second tier, like the Big Ten is right now. But what I'm trying to figure out is what made the rules reversed.
Well, one thing that comes to mind is integration. So even though integration happened in the mid to late 60s in college football in the South, it took some time. So black players in the 50s and 60s were going up north to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
And even though the SEC started to integrate in the late 60s,
mm-hmm.
That takes time to take hold.
Mm-hmm.
And Florida State and Miami were complete non-entities, didn't really recognize big-time football, didn't pump money into it, nothing. So teams from the North, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, could just plunder the state of Florida.
Mm-hmm. I got him. Coming. I mean, between stuff, but no, I was just wondering stuff like that. Now, what do you think it will take for the Big Ten to be more competitive with the SEC, as far as like with the CFP and stuff like that?
What's it going to take?
Yeah,
better players.
Yeah, I get that and stuff like that. But I mean, as far as it's competitive, like with Ohio State, it seems like every time they play an SEC team, everybody knows what's going to happen and stuff like that. But I mean, there's some teams in the Big Ten that has success against the SEC.
Sure.
But like with Nick Saban, how would Alabama be today? And what would LSU be like today if Saban didn't leave for Miami?
Well, that's a great point that you make there, Michael, because it's hard for people to believe now that weren't around at the time, but LSU football, from the time I started watching in the late 70s up until the time Nick Saban showed up,
mm-hmm.
LSU was basically, I don't know, Kansas State, somebody like that. They weren't very good. They were going 6-5 back in the 11-game schedule. That was pretty much their standard. A lot of 7-4, 6-5. They did go to 3 Sugar Bowls, or an Orange Bowl and 2 Sugar Bowls in 82, 84, 86. They weren't really that good. They were 8-3 those seasons. So LSU was, yeah. I have done videos and shown LSU's record for like 12, 13 years before Nick Saban showed up. They were barely 500. They were well under 500 in the SEC. So, yeah. And Alabama, of course, was down late in Mike Dubos's tenure there into Nick Saban's first year. So for about 5, 6 years, 7 years, they weren't anything close to what they are expected to be.
Yeah, no. Francione, I mean, he had somewhat success there, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Mm-hmm.
He had a good season. They had a good Mike Shula had one good year. They went 10-2. They won the Cotton Bowl one year in 05, 03, 05. Losing track, but yeah, they had a couple of pop-up years. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just wondering. No, I just wanted to get your take about it and stuff like that. But anyway, it's always a great show, sir.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that.
Take care. See ya.
Lemansky wants the link. We will get to the link. I will drop it there in the comments section here in just a second. Trying to interpret Gary's comment here. He says, era Mark describes LSU averaged 6 to 9 wins most seasons. Yeah. First off, I want to give I don't want to say shout out. I hate that term. I just want to acknowledge what Porter said. So Porter is correct. In the year 2000, Porter, hopefully you're listening. In the year 2000, Miami finished ahead of Florida State. Of course, they won the head-to-head. Miami finished ahead of Florida State in both the coaches poll and in the AP poll, but Florida State, the computer overrode it, even though that was 2/3 of the formula. I think they tweaked it after this year. I believe so. There was one other thing real quick before I take this call from Dre. Dre, please put in the private chat where you're calling from or who you root for, something that I can put on a banner. Amazon link, folks. Amazon link in the description section of all the videos. Same shopping experience. Doesn't cost you a penny. Shop Amazon. Use the link that we've got. Also, please like the video. A number of people have stated that. Please like the video. And also, we've got a Discord that's amazing. So please jump on that. Go to Patreon. Search Mark Rogers TV. And as Mayhem Matthew says, hit the like button, please. That doesn't massage my ego. I don't even look to see how many people like it, but I want you to hit the like button. So please, that's a whole YouTube thing. If you get like 10,000 people watching a video and you get 500 likes versus 10,000 people watched it and you get 2,000 likes, YouTube in some way, I can't explain it. They just treat it differently. And they say, people like this video, let's send it out there into traffic. Okay, before we take this call real quick, listen to LSU's records. I would love to cover my eyes and see how close I would come on these records, but LSU starting in we'll just start in 1980. 7-4, 3-7-1, 8-3-1, 4-7, 8-3-1, 9-2-1, 9-3, 10-1-1, 8-4, 4-7, 5-6, 5-6, 2-9. Can you imagine LSU 2-9, 92, 5-6, 4-7, 7-4-1, 10-2, 9-3, 4-7, 3-8, 8-4 Saban's first year. Crazy. All right. Dire Wolf on the line. What's going on?
Hi, Mark. Love your show.
Appreciate it.
I have the opportunity to go to Pittsburgh to see Pitt against Tennessee, but I don't want to go if the Vols are going to lose. Based on what you know now, what do you think?
I think even though they've got to travel and lost the game last year, I think Tennessee's a better football team than Pitt.
Okay. And then I found your show during COVID, enjoyed it a lot. And I've never really been to an SEC. I've never been to an SEC game. I've never been to a college game with like more than 30,000 people, let's say.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of going to either Knoxville well, this will put you on the spot, or Lexington to see a game. Which, if you just like would have picked one for a nice Saturday, game with like 100,000 people in the stands, which one would you do for a first timer, say?
Well, Tennessee football, Tennessee's New England Stadium is more historic. It's obviously a football school versus Kentucky, still a basketball school. I've never been to either one, so I can't comment based on experience. I can only comment based on the checkerboard in the end zone in Tennessee. Again, it's just more historic from that standpoint. So talk to some of the folks in here. Maybe somebody's got a
Yeah, actually, they're only 80 miles apart, so I was actually thinking of doing both.
oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Then a weird thing I read today, not weird, but Trayvon Williams on the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yes.
He's out of A&M, Texas A&M, I think.
Yep.
So he's going to teach a course at Texas A&M on how to handle your NIL thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and so get this. He claims that Harvard has contacted him to teach like an NIL course at Harvard.
Good for him.
Yeah, I remember. It's kind of interesting, all of a sudden Harvard's reaching down to Texas A&M to figure out how to deal with all this.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I don't know whether their angle is on how to deal with it or just that this is a big new
That's
wave
it.
of society, and they just want something.
Yeah, it may be some academic who's just studying, some economics professor.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how this is going to work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would think it's more about that.
Okay, well, I just want to say that enjoy the show again, and the Amazon link thing works. I've tried that a couple. I haven't spent much money there, but I know how it works now. You don't have to buy the floating A&M helmet. And
yeah, that's I was forced to do something to put up there. So
I know, but I get it now. But when that first thing came up, I said, I don't want no A&M helmet.
I've looked into swapping that out, and it was just such a complicated process. I was like,
whenever you swap it to somebody else, won't like that, But anyway, I'm looking forward to a good season. Bye now.
Thanks, Dire Wolf. Appreciate that. All right, let's keep it going here. The voice of college football and a big USC fan, of course, Timmy Trojan. Tim, how are you?
Good. How's it going?
I'm doing just fine. Is that a Cleveland Indians hat?
Yeah, no, it's a major league hat, Mark. No, yeah, it's Cleveland Indians. Yeah, I love this hat.
Are you an Indians fan, Guardians fan, former Indians fan, anything like that? You just like the hat?
I'm a baseball fan. I got a collection. I have tons of hats.
Okay.
It just depends on what week you catch me in. Mostly it's always Dodger hats, but Dodger game days, I put my good luck hat on. That's usually the one that's on. It's about as old as the hills.
Tim, from 1978 until a couple years ago, you would not find a bigger Indians fan than me. And huge Major League Baseball fan. We could talk baseball all night, I guarantee it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I was a much bigger fan before I had started having my kids.
Well, yeah. I'm not a big fan now.
It's just not enough time especially during the summer.
No.
With all their sports and everything.
Exactly.
And they get to the fall, and it's like, do I pick college football or what do I do? Because I got to give the family time. But unfortunately, the Dodgers and Major League Baseball took the hit on that one, and it's kind of more towards college football these days. Yeah, I was called in because you guys were talking about that 2000 BCS game and the computers, and believe me, any USC fans could tell you really quickly that they didn't fix that stuff, because in 2003 USC was number 1 in both polls at the end of the season and got left out. USC finished the regular season number 1 in both polls, and even though they weren't in it when they beat Michigan in the Rose Bowl, there was like the majority of AP voters voted USC number 1, and even 3, even though they're contractually obligated, there were 3. I'd love to know this day who those 3 coaches were. 3 coaches voted USC, even though they were contractually obligated to vote for LSU, they actually voted for USC because that, a lot of people talk about 2004 and 2005 teams, but that Carson Palmer team was just hitting on all cylinders. Mike Williams, that was a really special team.
Carson Palmer.
I'm sorry, 2003 was Liner. My bad. I'm sorry. Did I say Palmer?
Yep.
Palmer? I'm sorry. 2002 was the Orange Bowl with Carson Palmer.
Yeah,
I misspoke.
sure. Yeah. So to your point, final AP poll regular season after the conference championship games, which of course was just the Big 12 and the SEC. But anyway, USC had 42 first place votes, LSU 21, Oklahoma 2 in the AP poll. So twice as many as LSU. And then the final coaches poll of the regular season was USC 37, LSU 18, Oklahoma 8. Wow.
Yeah. It was pretty bizarre at the time. We couldn't believe it. Like, we're all celebrating, and all of a sudden you don't have to invite to the dance. And so at that point I knew the BCS was the crock of fill in your noun if you want on that one. And then 2008, again, another big USC year, they got left out. It would have been great to see Urban Meyer in Florida play Carroll and USC.
Man.
But yet another one sitting there. And you're talking about, you were talking about all-time defenses. USC did have, they were 9 points a game, that defense. And they had, I think, 8 players drafted in 2009, and then an additional 3 more starters. So basically every starter on that defense was drafted in the NFL. A lot of them played for years and Pro Bowlers. So I mean, Clay Matthews, Maluga, and Cushing, all 3 of those guys were on that same defense.
Yeah,
it was an amazing defense. It would have been a great game. I think it'd been an all-time classic to watch Meyer and Carroll match up on that game.
Yeah, I think both years would have been phenomenal. LSU only beat Oklahoma by a touchdown, but it was one of those games you knew who was going to win the whole game. They had control of the game. LSU and USC would have been phenomenal. And like you say, Florida, Oklahoma. This was a very difficult year for voters. I got to admit, listen to the heavyweights that only had 1 loss. So this is final regular season poll, AP 2008. Florida's 12-1. Oklahoma 12-1, Texas 11-1, Alabama 12-1, USC 11-1, Penn State 11-1, Texas Tech was 11-1, and Boise and Utah were both 12-0. You had a stacked 9 teams that either had no losses, group of 5 type teams, or 1 loss. Heavyweights. That's a strange year. Wow.
Is my mic too loud, Mark?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
It
was surprising. It was that's the BCS. Now, I mean, I know that the genie's out of the bottle. I know everyone wants 18 rounds of playoffs for college football now. It's getting kind of absurd. But now that it's going to shrink, because I think we all see the writing on the wall, it's probably going to go down to a P. There'll be maybe 4, if not 3, power conferences pretty soon. I mean, that's really what the writing on the wall is. I'm really beginning to wonder if they could just keep it at 4 and then they have the highest at large for that 4th. But again, it would have to be one of the schools that are not in the P3. So to make it legitimized, because the last thing you want if you're in Alabama or Georgia, you don't want someone being able to stake a claim saying, "Hey, that's not fair. It wasn't decided on the field." You're gonna want, because Georgia or Alabama, you're gonna get that guy in the first round, and it's gonna be tantamount close to a bye, but it'll be a solid game. I'm guarantee it. The number 4 team's not gonna be a baby, but you can't have it to where you're locking 80 teams out of a playoff. That there might be some players that they're gonna have a good season, and you can't have it to where it's just centered on the Big Ten and the SEC and maybe the ACC, or a combination of the ACC and all the other schools are left. I think you need to have room for that last group to get in, because that makes it a playoff, a very small playoff. But having 3 to 4 teams each, let's say the SEC gets 3 teams in, the Big Ten gets 2 teams in. You're stacking the teams into like an 8-team playoff, and beyond 8 teams. I mean, why do we need more than 8 teams in a college football playoff? It's absolutely a waste of time. I'm still waiting for a good argument where we need to see the 9th best team in the country playing for the national championship. Mark, you know a lot.
No, I don't have that argument for you. It doesn't exist. The only flimsy argument I would have is when we leave it up to people to decide the best teams are they the 9th best team in the country? Well, according to the rankings, they are. So yeah, when I have put together a 16-team playoff, and when I have taken the standings each year and put that into a 16-team playoff, just to say, look how cool this would be. That's all I'm doing, is saying we'd have a lot of cool matchups. We'd have a lot of Penn State, Florida kind of matchups, or Oregon and Oklahoma State matchups, and Michigan and NC State matchups, or whatever. There are a lot of cool matchups of a lot of good teams, but not national championship contending teams. Yes, 8 should do it. 8 gets all the conference. I just want to see all the conferences represented, regardless of how good or bad people think they are. Each conference should be represented.
I agree. Well, so you mean 8 teams? So you're going to play. So you're going to have the 8 conference winners. Is that where you would have?
No. Well, currently, the way it's currently constructed, the 5 major conferences.
And sorry, and then on an 8-team playoff?
Yes. 3 at large.
3 at large. Yeah, I mean, again, this 3 at large, and I know I'm not going to have many. I know it's SEC night, or even Big Ten, because actually, when I say this, it will go against USC's best interest, because in some years USC might be that second team or possibly even third team from the Big Ten one day.
Sure.
But I don't think USC should get a shot at the national title if they can't win their own conference.
So you want only conference championships, which I completely respect. And actually, one of my best friends would be right there with you. He's not a big college football fan, but he's like, why are teams that don't win their conference in this thing? So how would you do that, though? Unless we're playing fantasy land and you can construct college football any way you want in terms of conferences, but we can't do that. We got to deal with the reality of currently 5 conferences, and who knows what it's going to be in 5 or 6 years. It could be 4, it could be 3. How do you do that with only conference champions? Let's take the current situation right now. How would you do it?
I would. People are going to laugh. Like, say, well, we've got 9 teams in SEC that are better than those teams, et cetera, et cetera. At this point, honestly, I think that now more than ever, you do need the 8, because at least for the next couple of years, because everyone's kind of standing pat. You still have
Where are these 8 coming from that won conferences. Are you talking about the Sun Belt Conference champ and the MAC champion? And
you got to go G5.
Okay, I'm fine with that too.
Because and then I know
it's 10 conferences though, Tim.
Yeah, I don't know. To be honest with you, I will admit my knowledge of the G5, of the G5 conferences. I don't know which G5 is better than. I mean, I know American was great. I know year to year, but you just have them. Whatever the highest ranked G5 champion is of those conferences, right? They get in the next, right? So the next 3 are stacked with the 3 highest G5. And that does give you, and then how the conference champions work. So this is where it's going to be a little bit of, there is some subjectivity, but again, it's college football. If you make it completely sterile, it wouldn't be college football, would it? You do need a little bit of controversy. So the ranking would probably be the conference highest ranked champion. The seeding is just straight on rankings. Wherever you fall ranked, that's the way you're going to be, but you're in,
Yeah.
So you have your top 5 from the G5, probably SEC, then a Big Ten, whoever down the line, and then you fill in the last 3 with the champions from the G5, and then we don't have these arguments about Central Florida, etc. And you're right, they are going to get smashed, right? But you know what? If we bring in the 8th ranked team and play them against Georgia last year, they're going to get smashed. We bring in the 8th against Alabama, or you go back, or LSU. They're going to get smashed. Why not give these conferences, open it up to everybody? So at least if you aren't a G5, so you're not getting screwed every year. Like, who knows? Maybe they have this Cinderella season and they may not win it, but maybe they win a playoff game or 2.
So this last season,
I don't see an argument against it.
So this last season, we would have had, first and foremost, people whose minds are going to be blown, but Georgia would not have made the playoff.
Well, they lost their championship game. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So we've got most likely Alabama's the 1 seed, Michigan's the 2 seed. Let's say, I guess, anyway, I won't go through the seedings, but we've got Alabama from the SEC, Michigan from the Big Ten, Pitt from the ACC, Baylor from the Big 12, Utah from the Pac-12. And then we've got the 3 top G5s, which is obviously going to be Cincinnati from the American. And then most likely it would have been, man, I'd really have to think about it. I guess whoever won, Louisiana or Coastal Carolina, won the Sun Belt. And the Mountain West champ would definitely be in there. So that was who won the San Diego State, Fresno State, whoever won the Mountain West.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. I don't.
I should know, but I forget. But the Mountain West is a really good conference.
We would know if there was a college playoff like that. And I think they should get that recognition. They play ball. Those kids get beat up at practice just like everybody else. They play their games, they do everything. And I think Absolutely. That they should be discounted completely. They're in college football. Their division, unless you're going to make a new division where they're not included in it, right? Then that's fine.
Exactly.
They are Division I, they're FBS, whatever you want to call it.
It's an insult to your point, Tim. It's an insult that we patronize them by saying, yeah, you're playing big time college football, but you have no chance in hell of playing in the playoff. I've said this is one of my favorite lines, that the college football playoff selection committee should have to go to every group of 5 school during the summer, during summer workouts, and show up and meet with the team and say, you know what, congratulations, or, good luck this season. We hope you win every game by 50 points, but even if you do, you have no chance in hell of making the playoff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Have a good season.
I mean, it's and I've never heard a good argument for anybody, including, that Georgia team was insane, but there's been a lot of insane great teams that have lost a game along the way and aren't the national champion. What do you say to
USC? Yeah.
Well, what do you say to Alabama? Hey, you guys, good job. You won the SEC. Excellent. You won the toughest conference in the country. You actually beat Georgia, but guess what? We're going to make them. You're 1-1 against Georgia, but we're going to make them the national champion because they won last. I mean, what sense does that even? What sense does that make?
Well, it's the structure of the playoff, though. That's where I disagree with you. I get your point.
Well, the structure
that happens every year in the NFL. You could lose a regular season game or to a team, but then you play them in the playoff and you split 2 games, but that doesn't mean the regular season is the regular season, which gets us to the point of the playoff. But I get your point.
There's a huge reason why we're college football fans is because, there are some in here that are equally college and then pro. There's some here that like pro more than college. And then there's a lot of us, I think, that are here on a Saturday night tuning into an SEC when you're packed, going to the big, and I'm still talking college football. It's because I'm a college football fan. And the reason why I'm number 1 college football fan is because it's not like the NFL. And the more they make it like the NFL, I'm not saying I'm going to stop watching, but every time they start taking more and more what makes this sport special and not the NFL, because let's face it, I don't care how good it gets. I don't care if they go down to, a power like of 24 great college teams. They all play each other and all that. It's still going to be, the ball's not going to be as good as the NFL. So if your goal is to watch the best football, then you're watching the wrong sport. That's the NFL.
True.
So why are we trying to make college football the NFL? We say, well, they do this in hockey. They do this in baseball. They do this. Yeah, well, we're not hockey. We're not the NFL. Do you know what I mean? As these arguments to me just seem like, are we going to try to ruin college football? Because if we let Fox and ESPN run this thing, they're going to run it into the ground. They're going to commercialize it. It'll be a NASCAR part 2. It's going to be a mess. So college football fans have to start realizing that there's a lot of things that make, the Bulls suck. Who cares? Unless it's the playoffs. The Bulls don't suck. Those kids played hard. They got a bowl game. That should be honored. Game. Yeah, I don't get it. I'd watch bowl games. We're all going to watch Hawaii versus Vanderbilt. That shows you how sick we all are, right? Why are we saying, I'm not going to watch a bowl game? Yes, you are. You're going to watch bowl games. You care about bowl games.
It is funny that people talk and they diss the bowl games and all that, but I know this from working in TV for as long as I did, that even though, we're not headed toward a good place when it comes to the bowl games and they seem ridiculous and have ridiculous corporate names and Gasparilla Bowl and all these ridiculous, more people watch college football bowl games than watch anything in college basketball's regular season into the postseason. Like, people watch them. They may not admit it, or may make fun of it, but they're watching bowl games.
Yeah, for sure. And then Dustin, it's just USC decides to take a decade off every couple of decades, and that's just USC, unfortunately. So it would have been nice. Well, we could have seen. I don't know about peak SEC, but those Florida teams again. That 2008 would have been a great USC, or maybe SEC. We could have seen in 2003. We could have seen USC versus LSU that year. I don't know how Oklahoma, and this has nothing to do with current events, but I don't know how Oklahoma would squeak into these BCS games and get absolutely romped. Like we're not maybe the score like you said 2003, but they weren't in that game. 2004, well, why were they in that game? I'm just saying.
03 is the ridiculous example because Oklahoma lost the Big 12 championship game by 4 touchdowns. They lost the Big 12 title game by 35-7. That's how screwed up the BCS computer was. Yes. What's interesting, though, back to the 1 through 8 playoff with the 8 conference champions is basically what you're going to have is you're going to have about the 4 best teams in the country there. Then maybe an ACC champ or a Pac-12 champ or whatever might be more like the 9th or 10th best team in the country and the 11th best team in the country. And I'm just estimating. And then you're going to have this drop that's going to grab like the 30th best team in the country. That's the American Conference champ. And then it's going to grab like the 50th best team in the country. That's the Sun Belt Conference or the Mountain West Conference. But you know what, Tim, to your point, yeah, we are going to see some blowouts. We're going to see some ridiculous, but we already see them. They might be just a little bit worse. They might be more in the 52-10 range. But the first year, Tim, and I don't know if it's going to take 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, that we're all going to be blowing our minds because Louisiana is going to be upsetting Ohio State early in the 4th quarter. And it's going to be like, can you believe this is happening? It's going to be an epic moment in college football history.
Yeah. I would like to see all the teams represented. You either say you guys are, like you said, we're not going to rehash it, but there's no argument. We see the number 4 team get smashed. We saw the number 2 team outmatched last year. No offense, guys out there. So, I mean, to say that team doesn't belong in there. Well, I mean, how many of these teams do belong in there? You know what I mean? If you're going to make it a playoff and not an invitational and not a tournament, the teams need to play their way in. How they do it? You have your first round of the playoffs, which would be the SEC championship game, would be the Big 10 championship game, would be the Pac-12, the Big 12 championship, ACC champ. That's your first round of your playoffs right there. So there you go. So in actuality, you are going to be getting this larger playoff. It's called your conference. And if you win that, you move on. I don't know why this is so hard to swallow. I do know why. It's because some schools know they're probably never going to be at the top, so I hope they can squeak in that 3rd place and then call themselves a playoff team. But in actuality, we're cutting out 80 to 90% of football by saying you're never going to have a chance to get into this thing because we're going to do it this way. So that's all. I really want to call to talk about that. Remind you that they didn't fix that thing in the BCS in 2003, and it came to bite USC. I mean, can you imagine being the number 1 team in both polls and you're not playing? You get jumped by the 2 and 3 teams, and you don't play in the BCS game. That's insane to me.
And if that was just a vote and there was no results to back that up, then I would say, Tim, I get your point, but it's even magnified by Oklahoma losing by 4 touchdowns in the Big 12 championship game. You talk about not honoring a conference championship.
Yeah, that's
Lord.
That's really bad. Yeah. All right. I don't want to take too much of your time. I appreciate, as always, taking my call. Someone in the chat said that USC 2008 was equivalent of Oklahoma State 2011. I don't know what football these guys watch, but the USC in 2008 in the Rose Bowl against Penn State, which was a really good Penn State team, very good Penn State team. Pete Carroll, because you got to remember that the coach was Joe Pa. I think it was his last game, possibly. I can't remember.
No, he was still 3 years away, but
okay. But
he had respect for Joe Pa.
Yeah, he had respect. But they were up.
I can't remember. 31-7.
Yeah, 31-7 in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, the
And then
final
it's
score
gonna-
was not.
Yeah, they put in some backups, you know, and they got I think some junk 13.
It looked
junk
respectable. 38-24 was the final. It looked respectable. That was not a game. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
that team
it's
was
broken, and that's why I don't want people or voters or committees or anyone doing this crap, because history shows us if we allow people, why not just let them play to get in? Who's arguing that we shouldn't have this? You have your playoff, you have your conference championship games, and then you have 4 more, or 8 more if we're talking about the 8 team. You have 4 more games for the playoffs. You don't need more than 8 teams maximum. I honestly going to argue as these teams, as the conference begin to contract, you're probably going to go down to 4. You don't need more than 4. If your thinking is that the other teams don't matter, make it 8 or make it 4. But don't do this thing where we're putting 2 or 3 teams in from each conference. That's just stupid, in my opinion. All right, Mark.
I like it, Tim. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. It's our guy, Timmy Trojan. I actually put together a little full screen graphic to honor some of our complete list, actually, of our Discord members / Patreon, but don't know if that's going to play tonight because, hey, we're going to take another call. We got Rick on the line. Rick, appreciate you being here. Okay. See you to Rick. Should I get out my little speech I make every so often? I don't understand how you could possibly think this little of yourself, I guess. I just can't relate to that. To call into a show that you don't care about, that you just found on the internet, or maybe you know about us, but you don't like me, or you just want to be a knucklehead, and you wait that long. You must have waited for 20 minutes. Really? I can't wait 12 seconds to do something. Anyway, so in addition to it just being a dumb thing to do, it's funny that somebody would wait like 20 minutes to play their little Rick Astley song. I hate that I know that, but there were certainly people in my life at the time that loved that song. So and for any of us around in 1989, 88, 89, something like that, 92, whenever it was, somewhere in that range. Remember that horrid song being like the #1 song in the country. But yeah, Rick Astley. So they played that for like, what, 1.5 seconds? Whew. Okay. Yes. Well, sorry, Antoine. Antoine likes the song. Did dude just rock roll him? All right, good stuff. Appreciate everybody being here. This is our SEC preview. We're on all the channels, all the SEC channels, but most of you are here on the main channel. So do recognize that we've got SEC channels: South Carolina, Florida, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, Texas A&M, LSU. I think I got them all. So please check out our individual SEC channels, and especially, folks, if you are supporting what we do here, the Voice of College Football, even if you hate Florida football, even if you hate LSU football, we're around 930 right now. So please subscribe over there. I'm actually going to grab those links and drop them. So please help us out by subscribing to the Florida and LSU channels. Let's get them to 1,000 like now. We've got Florida at 941. And we've got LSU right around the same number. And this is all about building out the Voice of College Football and what we do here. We, as you guys remind me from time to time, work pretty hard to put this together. And believe me, folks, I want these channels and I want what we do here to be 10 times better than it is now. I appreciate everybody that jumps on here and tells us that we're doing a great job. They love the content. We can do better. If I had more time to prepare, we would do better. But we're just flying by the seat of our pants here, just trying to pull off 25 channels is what we're doing right now. We could make a whole lot more money, have more resources, and turn that into like better sets, graphics, hire some people. Then that's where we're headed, where we want to be someday. But appreciate all you being here. And once again, I threw the links to the Florida and LSU channels in the chat. So please follow those to those respective channels and please subscribe right there. You know what? Ferris, thank you so much. And you know what? If you hate Florida, hate LSU, please do it for me for 3 weeks, whatever it is, because you know what happens is once we get to 1,000, once we get comfortably over 1,000, 1,050, you know what? Unsubscribe. Go ahead and unsubscribe at that point. That's fine. You got us there. We'll be fine. We'll keep growing from there. If you see, we've got tons of channels that are in the 2,000, 3,000, 6,000. Ohio State's around 6,000. I think we had 3 milestones just here in the last, let's say, week. Miami got to 8,000, Ohio State to 6,000, and Florida State to 3,000. Oklahoma's pushing 5,000. Michigan's pushing 5,000. So, Andy, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. Thank you for that. Got a comment in from Cheryl. I lost track of it. Thank you so much, Cheryl. We appreciate that. Appreciate you. Cheryl is like the best mod of all time. So she has put in way too much work and time monitoring these channels. Exploring with Ben's phenomenal. Ben, thank you so much for being there, which reminds me of something. Sorry, Ben, I didn't get back to you, did I? I just don't know. Yeah, I won't get into it. Something between Exploring with Ben and myself. Join me on Patreon, as Ben is telling us right there. $5 a month. $5 a month. And that has not gone up with inflation. So the current economy has not affected the voice of college football. So still $5 a month. You get the Discord. We sell the Discord first and foremost as being the thing. So the Discord is just a big chat like you've got right here, but it's on Discord. I get you a link as soon as you sign up. I get the link to you as soon as I possibly can, and you can talk there all the time. And we've got it broken down into an SEC chat, Big 10, Big 12, ACC, Pac-12/10, then a national chat, and then One Scoop John suggested, hey, let's have another chat where we can talk about other stuff, movies or what's going on in our lives or whatever. And I said, heck yeah, we'll do that. But as this gets bigger, we want people to be able to find the comments or the comments, the conversations that they want. So as we build this out, hey, if USC takes off and we get a zillion USC fans in there, we'll have a USC chat room. Maybe if it even gets bigger than that, we'll have a USC recruiting chat room. Sky's the limit. We can add channels to it. They're called channels. Don't be confused. They're chat rooms. And these guys are going to have watch parties, rewatch parties, I believe, coming up this fall. And again, that's just part of it with the Discord. With Patreon, you get my picks, which start in 2 weeks. I better be ready to make some picks that are winners. But also it's what we did last year is I had about 15 of our main contributors on here. Steve Dace, Tony Gerdeman, bunch of people you'd recognize, Steve Hellwagon, the Wholesome One, Corey Bratta, guys like that. And we had a 12-pack that we picked every week, both straight up and against the spread. And I get to brag about this for 2 more weeks. I was the winner, did finish with the best record against the spread and straight up. So I'm going to have to defend my crown. But we do a 12-pack every week. But then I do more extensive picks than just the 12-pack. I predict all. No, I'm not going to do that. Forget it. I was going to suggest I'm going to pick every college football game every week. No. I do all the top 25 games plus a few other games of interest. So I usually pick about 20 to 25 games per week. Yes, I do. And then exclusive live streams over there. We'll make it exclusive live streams / content. So I give everybody the option once a month to, did I miss a super chat? I'll get to it. Thank you to Real MVP. That, once a month, per request, per person, I will produce something, whether that be an exclusive live chat, live stream, or some kind of content. The last thing that I remember somebody requested maybe a month ago, a Michigan State schedule preview. So we delivered that. I would like to put together a bunch of previews like I did a couple weeks ago with the Clemson, where I did the record and the whole deal. Man, I'm going to have to get going on that. All right. Yes, super chat. Well, I believe I forgot to mention, I had it posted for quite some time. Oh, I did miss the super chat. Sorry about that. Hopefully, judicial protest is still here. He says, yo, Tim, USC is 0-8 in making the college football playoff. The Big Ten is not going to make it any easier. However, a guy named Lincoln Riley, that might make it easier. So that's going to be fascinating. Is it not going to be fascinating whether you love this expansion realignment business or you hate it? It is going to be fascinating. Oklahoma, Texas in the SEC, USC, UCLA in the Big Ten. It's going to be fascinating to see how those 4 schools play in new conferences, and we will see if we are going to have further expansion. Things seem to have settled down, but let's keep in mind that we also were in the same place this time last year, and then we got the bombshell about 6 weeks ago. So maybe next summer we hear more, we get more, and all of that happens with the SEC and the Big Ten expanding. We have produced a number of videos here where we do our best. I don't want to produce a million realignment kind of videos if I don't believe that there's some substance there. So basically everything I produced is basically saying, okay, will the Big Ten continue to expand? Who are the candidates and what are their qualifications as football teams, as sports programs, as academic institutions, media market, all of it included. And I've sized that up from a number of angles. And if I come up with another logical, reasonable angle to take on that, I will produce more of those videos coming up. But in the meantime, again, we will have, we will have week 0 coverage here 2 weeks from tonight. We will be here talking college football with all of you. We will do Nebraska post game. We've got Hawaii and Vandy. We've got Illinois on the field against Wyoming. Not the biggest games in the world, but college football, guys hitting each other. Absolutely. So we will be here for that. And then, of course, week 1 is going to be crazy because we're going to do a 24-hour marathon. And we're going to be all over Thursday, Friday, Saturday games. You guys know the drill. All right, folks. Appreciate you being here. I do have a couple other initiatives that are coming your way very soon. One Scoop John, thank you so much for that. The Patreon is where it's at. We have a great time. Thank you, One Scoop John. Appreciate that. Again, it's patreon.com. Go to MarkRogersTV. There it is. Patreon.com, search MarkRogersTV. You'll be in contact with me. It'll come to me. I'll get you the link to Discord as soon as I possibly can. And you get all the perks that I outlined before. Week 0 is 2 weeks away. And predictions, 24-hour marathon. I got 2 initiatives that I don't want to quite deliver yet, but I'm just about ready. We were asked by a up-and-coming platform to do something for them that's going to be great content for you. Hopefully, I think I can deliver. And then we've got another initiative that, I think it's time to hold some people accountable and take them to task. So we're going to, either going to be a weekly video or maybe a weekly live stream. We'll figure all that out. All right, folks, appreciate you being here. And as you leave the stream, as Ricardo was saying, please like the video when it says more chats and likes. Yes, please like the video. We will see you all soon. Don't know about tomorrow. Tomorrow, actually, we've got an Oregon Live. That's right. Oregon Live over on the Oregon channel. That will come your way. Maybe we'll put it on here on the main channel as well. Oregon Live at 1 Eastern, 10 in the morning out west. Tim, are you going to be up for that? We've got an Oregon Live tomorrow. And we may even go live with Florida State Talk with Logan Robinson from Florida State Camp tomorrow. Yes, Ryan Winter will be there. Rick Astley says hi. Love you too, Rick. Stay in the 80s. Okay. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon. Appreciate the support.